गुड इवनिंग एवरीवन। तो आज का हमारा जो टॉपिक है काफ़ी इंटरेस्टिंग है। बैंकिंग, इकोनॉमिक एक्सपेंशन, फिनटेक एंड उसका पूरा इम्पैक्ट स्टॉक मार्केट पे क्या होगा। ये प्लीज़ मैंने रिक्वेस्ट करी थी, प्रियंका जी आप रिक्वेस्ट मत भेजिए। अभी हमारा जब सेशन खत्म हो जाएगा उसके बाद हम लोग रिक्वेस्ट लेंगे, जब हमारे पास टाइम होगा कोई डिस्कशन या क्वेश्चन आंसर के लिए। तो अभी हम किसी का रिक्वेस्ट ले नहीं सकते, अगर कोई डालेगा भी तो हम उसको शायद डिनाई भी कर देंगे। तो अभी हम एक काम करते हैं, सबसे पहले तीनों स्पीकर का इंट्रोडक्शन करा लेते हैं, क्योंकि मोस्टली सब नए नए लोग आते रहते हैं, किसी को पता नहीं होता कि हमारे स्पीकर्स कौन है, उनका क्या एक्सपीरियंस है। तो एक बार शुरू करते हैं सैनिक सर से। हाय सैनिक सर, कैसे हैं?
हाँ ठीक हूँ सर, आपकी दुआ से एंड बेर की दुआ से।
क्या लग रहा है, बुलिश है या बेरिश है? कैसी तैयारी है आपकी?
सर अभी तो मुझे स्टमक अपसेट हो गया है सर। नहीं, on a serious note, I have been consistently been bullish, and what has happened on Thursday and Friday is very much expected. So I'm certainly looking forward to Monday. I bought on Friday evening closing 50% whatever money I had, plus I'm going to buy on Monday 50%. I have bought many more things much before that for my family account, but I had kept some cash. I bought it whatever out of the cash, 50% on Friday evening done, and Monday I'm planning to buy another 50%. I have a logic for that.
ओके, तो आपके बारे में थोड़ा सा जान लेते हैं 2 मिनट में। कुछ आप अपना पास्ट एक्सपीरियंस और अपने बारे में 2 मिनट में बता दीजिए।
Yeah, thanks, Vipin. My biodata talks of me having done engineering, then did my management in Mumbai. I worked in the corporate sector in a place called Indian Market Research Bureau, which is the largest research agency in the country, market research. Then I did my I worked in advertising, where I was in charge for Titan advertising and bonds. I kicked the job and started getting into the market as a professional in 1991, July. I was an investor since 1982 when I was in engineering. So I joined as a sub-broker to a sub-broker in Madras Stock Exchange. Then I became a sub-broker and went on to the ring in the Madras Stock Exchange. Then a couple of my clients had money, but they didn't have experience. So I managed their broking house. That is, we became members on the National Stock Exchange for about 25 years. So in 2020, we closed shop. Currently, I am in a semi-retired situation. I operate between Bangalore and Mysore. I currently manage my family and extended family accounts. Yeah, that's about all. And the only big thing I can tell you is in this 30 years, I met at least 30,000 traders. And I've also made more than 30,000 mistakes. I continue to make mistakes every day. My track record is maybe at best is 60%. And I'm still a learner in the stock market. I have survived these 30,000 plus mistakes with God's grace. Hopefully, I'll survive for another 30 years. I plan to be in the market till my last breath, as they say. Thank you.
थैंक यू सर। जैसा कि आपने बताया कि आपके पास 30 साल का मार्केट का एक्सपीरियंस है और जिस तरीके से आप डेडिकेटेड थे स्टॉक मार्केट में, तो जाहिर सी बात है कि हमें आपसे जो इनपुट मिलते हैं वो बहुत ही मेच्योर इनपुट मिलते हैं। तो अब आते हैं जरा विनय जी पे। हेलो विनय जी, कैसे हो?
बस सर, सब बढ़िया सर।
तो क्या चल रहा है आपके दिमाग में? बैंकिंग, हमने ये टॉपिक दिया था सबको कि इस पे आप बोलेंगे, तो इस पे क्या व्यू आपका लग रहा है? बुलिश हो, बेरिश हो, या लाइट हो, कॉशियस हो? क्या है आपका तैयारी?
सर आई थिंक संक्षेप में अगर मैं कुछ एक ही चीज में पहले अभी बताना चाहूंगा कि बैंकिंग एंड इकोनॉमिक एक्सपेंशन जो है वो दैट इज द बेसिकली द सीड ऑफ द बुल मार्केट और द सीड ऑफ द पर्टिकुलर इकोनॉमी। जब इकोनॉमिक एक्सपेंशन होता है, it is the banking sector that is the main trigger and that propels the economic expansion, because पूरी economy चलती है credit पे, and when the banking sector starts giving credit, that means the corporates, the retail or the consumers are in risk on mode. They are feeling more confident about taking loans and able to service it in the long term. And as you have seen in the last 10 years, the banks have become very risk averse between 2014 to 20 due to the obvious reasons of cleaning up of the balance sheet. Now, जब उनके पास बैलेंस शीट क्लीन है, they will of course compared to 2014 and 20 they'll become risk averse. And given the kind of economic expansion we are going to see in future in India, I think banking will be the single most focused sector in India in the growth story ahead.
थैंक यू। तो थोड़ा सा अपने बारे में भी बताएंगे कि कितने साल से आप मार्केट में हैं, क्या कर रहे हैं, मेन इंटरेस्टिंग पॉइंट क्या रहा है आपका, किधर आप, क्यों आप स्टॉक मार्केट में हैं, और कंटिन्यूअस कितना डेडिकेशन है आपका?
Ji sir. Basically, I started my journey in 2007 ending, to be honest, because that time I think the end of bull market mein I got in around September, October. And I think after that, फिर bear market को study किया. So basically the kind of crisis that we had seen that time, I lived through it basically, seeing all the market crashing and US markets को देखना क्या चल रहा है, क्या नहीं चल रहा है. I think that was the first time in this current era where the world, the global financial crisis hit the whole world, and there was a meltdown in India, and most of the people were wondering what is happening in India कि यूएस के अंदर कुछ बैंक का इशू चल रहा है, यहाँ पे इंडिया के स्टॉक्स क्यों घट रहे हैं. दैट वाज आई थिंक द फर्स्ट टाइम वी सॉ ग्लोबल कनेक्शन एंड द ग्लोबल मेल्टडाउन ऑल अक्रॉस द वर्ल्ड इन द आफ्टर पोस्ट 2000 के अंदर हुआ था, बट दैट वाज मोर ऑफ आईटी रिलेटेड. दिस वाज वेरी फास्ट इन 2008. And I am basically from business community. I'm into edible oil business, and so I overlook into trading, stock market, as well as currency exposures, commodity exposures. So I have this passion for equity markets, charts, and economics and capital markets basically. So that has over the past 10-15 years stayed with me. And though in between I was away from the markets, but the interest always lived through me. And now in the last 2 years I've went in gung-ho about the capital markets, and I'm studying in more deep with all the capital markets, bond markets, and commodities. And I think equity markets ke andar, the best thing about it right now is we are entering into a biggest expansion mode since 2004-2008, which we have not seen since last 20 years. I think 2010 और 20 के बीच में अपने को दिखता है कि मार्केट्स वगैरह बढ़े हैं, बट दैट वाज मोर ऑफ अ कंसोलिडेशन फेज. जैसा आपने बहुत खूबसूरत चार्ट डाला था, 4 और 8 के बीच में इंडिया वाज यंग, एंड 8 आई थिंक 9 और 21 के बीच में इंडिया कंसोलिडेट हुआ है. नाउ दिस मैच्योरिटी ऑफ द बुल मार्केट इज गोइंग टू अनलीश, एंड द पीपल हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड कि बस कि कैसा इसको समझना चाहिए एंड बी पोजिशन फॉर इट. ऑफ कोर्स कैविट बीइंग ऑल एनी ब्लैक स्वैन इवेंट और एनी अनएक्सपेक्टेड इवेंट्स. So this is the more interesting phase in my last 10-15 years also, to be honest, because I have never been so bullish about India ever till date, to be honest.
ओके, ठीक है। तो अब आते हैं हिमजा जी पे। हिमजा जी।
हेलो।
हाँ जी, गुड इवनिंग।
गुड इवनिंग।
थोड़ा पहले अपने बारे में बताएं कि आप कब से इकोनॉमिक्स को पढ़ रही हैं, कब से इसके बारे में, और पुराना क्या क्या अचीवमेंट है, थोड़ा उसके बारे में एक बार इंट्रोड्यूस कर दें।
Okay. So I've written 2 books on foreign policy. The first book was in 2016 called The New Global Order. The second was in 2018, that was on the Korean Peninsula. हमारे फर्स्ट बुक हम तीनों लोग ने साथ में लिखी थी. फर्स्ट बुक का फॉरवर्ड और अप्रिसिएशन इंडिया के फॉर्मर रॉ चीफ मिस्टर विक्रम सूद ने किया था. जो सेकंड बुक थी कोरियन पेनिनसुला की, वो बुक के प्रेजेंटेशन के लिए हमको तभी हमारी रक्षा मंत्री निर्मला जी ने भी बुलाया था. So these have been two interesting things that have happened. I come from a business family. In terms of the market, I'm an investor. Professionally, I manage a foundation. I have also been one of the youngest recipients of the Rotary Professional Exchange Program. And foreign policy, economics has always been my interest. And जब भी हमने वो किताब लिखी, मतलब कुछ कुछ चीज़ें हमको पता होती है, but since the first book was a global mapping, what we were able to understand further and further, exactly like Vinay just said, that with globalization, एक ज़माने में सिर्फ जो जियो पॉलिटिक्स हम बोलते थे, वो ज़्यादा जियो इकोनॉमिक्स पे आ रहा है. So in other words, आज के जो फंडामेंटल फैक्टर्स जो मार्केट को गवर्न करते हैं, वो कोई भी चीज़ अभी सिंस वी कैन नॉट लिव इन आइसोलेशन, और इंडिया एक कंट्री भी नहीं है जो आइसोलेशन में रहती है, तो जो भी होता है दुनिया को हमको कुछ ना कुछ तरीके से इम्पैक्ट करता है, पॉजिटिव नेगेटिव, ये कॉम्बिनेशन है. So my way of looking at the market is more from a fundamental perspective, because in terms of the market, I'm more of an investor. I am not as much an active trader.
ओके, तो अभी जो आपने जो डेटा कलेक्ट किया है हमारे लिए, तो इससे क्या पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू कंक्लूजन, एक आइडिया दे दीजिए कि आप मार्केट पे बुलिश हैं या माइल्ड हैं या बेरिश हैं.
सो आज का मेरा जो टॉपिक है, बिकॉज ऑब्वियसली जैसे जब भी हमने ये टॉपिक डिस्कस किया था, बैंकिंग, इकोनॉमिक एक्सपेंशन, स्टॉक मार्केट, सो बेसिकली BFSI जो सेक्टर है वो सेक्टर बहुत वास्ट है. इट इज़ इम्पॉसिबल टू कवर इट इन, आई थिंक, इन एनी वन स्पेस. सो आज का मेरा जो बोलना है, इट इज़ ओनली फोकस टू फिनटेक. एंड आई वॉन्ट टू बेसिकली जस्ट इसमें मुझे सिर्फ मतलब मेरे पास थोड़े बहुत पॉइंट्स है, मुझे सिर्फ वो दिखाना है कि मुझे क्यों लगता है कि फिनटेक की वजह से बैंकिंग का ग्रोथ, मतलब ट्रेडिशनल फैक्टर्स सब है ही, इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ, क्रेडिट ग्रोथ, बैंकिंग क्लीन अप, ये सब चीज़ें 100%, उसमें देर इज़ नो इफ एंड बट फिनटेक से बैंकिंग में कितना रेवोल्यूशन आएगा, कितना उसमें अग्रेसिव ग्रोथ आएगा बाय वॉल्यूम एज वेल एज वैल्यू, एंड फिनटेक कितना बैंकिंग को प्रोपेल करेगा, और इसकी वजह से वंस बैंकिंग में और मोमेंटम आएगा तो ऑब्वियसली इकोनॉमी कितना उसको बेनिफिट मिलेगा, हाउ मच मोर द इकोनॉमी विल will go into a faster growth track. So yes, my also opinion is extremely positive, बिकॉज मतलब मेरे पास काफ़ी सारे डेटा पॉइंट्स हैं जो आई थिंक ये चीज़ हाईलाइट करेंगे कि ओवरऑल थिंग्स आर लुकिंग वेरी गुड. आई मीन इट्स अ गुड टाइम टू बी इन इंडिया.
थैंक यू इंडिया. तो मैं भी छोटा सा अपना इंट्रोडक्शन कर देता हूँ, बहुत से लोगों को नहीं पता होगा. तो मैं जिस समय मैं कॉलेज में, इंजीनियरिंग कॉलेज में एंट्री किया, तो एक वहाँ से एक फ्रेश बुल मार्केट चली. मेरे 4 सेमेस्टर की पढ़ाई होते होते मार्केट ने .com बबल बनाया, और फिर मेरे कॉलेज से निकलते निकलते मार्केट ने बॉटम बनाया. कॉलेज से निकलने के बाद मैंने कुछ कारणों से जॉब में नहीं जाना उचित समझा, और पूरी दुनिया में मंदी भी थी, .com बस्ट हुआ था, और आपका ट्विन टावर भी कोलैप्स हुआ था, तो काफ़ी ख़राब माहौल था. और मेरे पास कुछ ऐसे बेनिफिट्स थे या कुछ ऐसी मजबूरियां थी, तो मैंने अपने फैमिली बिजनेस को ज्वाइन किया और स्टॉक मार्केट को ज्वाइन किया, और वहाँ से एक फ्रेश यंगेस्ट बुल, बिल्कुल मेरी तरह, वहाँ से पैदा हुई. और जैसा जोश मार्केट में था वैसा ही जोश मेरे अंदर भी था. 2003-2 में ही एंट्री कर चुका था कॉलेज से निकलने के बाद ही, बट प्रॉपर 2003, 4, 5, 6, 7, 5 साल का पूरा बुल मार्केट एंजॉय किया. 2008 का क्रैश भी एंजॉय किया, और तब से कंटिन्यू एंजॉय है. और जैसे जैसे हमें इसके ये समझ में आती गई, वैसे वैसे हम इसके डेप्थ में घुसते गए. हमने अपने एक्सपीरियंस ऐड करने के लिए हमने ब्रोकिंग में भी जाके जॉब करी, जस्ट फॉर कि कुछ पता चले कि पब्लिक माइंडसेट क्या होता है, प्रॉब्लम्स क्या होती हैं. और बड़े HNI अकाउंटों के साथ भी काम किया, जहाँ पे वो एक एक अकाउंट 1000 करोड़ 500 करोड़ के होते हैं, उनके लिए काम किया कि मार्केट में इन आउट करने में क्या दिक्कत होती है, लोगों का थॉट प्रोसेस क्या होता है, कॉमन पीपल का थॉट प्रोसेस क्या है, HNI का थॉट प्रोसेस क्या है, ये सब किया है. और उसके बाद पिछले 5-6 सालों से एक सॉफ्टवेयर कंपनी के साथ ज्वाइन होकर हम लोग एल्गोरिथम बेस्ड ट्रेडिंग सिर्फ करते हैं, बाकी अपना मार्केट से एक्टिव रहते हैं, नॉलेज लेते हैं, फंडामेंटली समझते हैं. तो बाकी सब थोड़ा बहुत मेरे ट्विटर से आइडिया लग जाता होगा. तो अब हम आते हैं टॉपिक पे. तो सैनिक सर से शुरू करते हैं. सर, आपकी जो भी स्पीच तैयार है, प्लीज आप उसको डिलीवर करें, और थोड़ा एग्जाम्पल भी बीच बीच में आप ऐड कर दीजिएगा, ताकि लोगों को बहुत सी चीज़ें होती हैं कि बहुत ही थ्योरी नहीं समझ में आती है, तो कोशिश करिएगा कि थोड़ा बीच बीच में आप एग्जाम्पल एक्स्ट्रा ऐड कर दीजिएगा. सैनिक सर.
Thank you. Normally, I never talk only of theory. I always put some data and certainly give some examples. So I have mostly data, and that data is basically an example of what happened then and what can happen, what is happening now, and what can happen in the future. So the proposition is like this. In the past, the Bank Nifty has shown clearly the direction of the economy and the stock market. See, most of us look at Nifty to show the economy and the direction, because Nifty is consisting of 50 stocks, and 66% of the market capitalization is sitting in the Nifty 50 stocks. Whereas Bank Nifty is much smaller. It consists of only a maximum of 12 stocks. And two of the stocks, I think, hold about 50% of the Bank Nifty. So HDFC Bank and ICICI, between them, contribute 50%. And the top five contribute nearly about 80%. So most people don't like to look at Bank Nifty because they think it is manipulatable. Whereas the biggest Nifty stock, Reliance, is about less than 12%. Whereas HDFC Bank is 24%, 26%. But if you want to look at the economy, then you need to look at the performance of the Bank Nifty more than Nifty. If you look at pure statistics, the beta between Bank Nifty and Nifty shows us 1.09, which means Bank Nifty will move in line with Nifty. But there are critical times when the economy is turning, when Bank Nifty will diverge in terms of the magnitude of the direction will be the same, but diverge in terms of the magnitude between Nifty. If you really look back at 2003, 2007, 2003, when Vipin Bhai entered the market, he entered at the beginning of a great bull market, I would say. I too entered in the beginning of the most exciting bull market ever. When 91 August, September, I entered, and that was a market where it went up by about 3 times from 1500 Sensex. There was the Nifty. It went up to 4500 within 9 months. Whereas Vipin Bhai's bull market, debut bull market, was much slower. The Sensex went up from 4500 to 21,000, but it took between April to May 2004 to January 2008. So Vipin Bhai's market was probably much slower than what we did. So that was the big good thing for us, but also bad thing, because we began to believe that we were gods. You can make huge money in the market very quickly. Like what the Robin Hoods, we accuse the Robin Hoods of doing now, people who entered in 2020. I was triple Robin Hood. If Vipin was double Robin Hood, I was triple Robin Hood, because we made enormous amount of money within a very short span of time. And that led to disaster to many people. We somehow survived. So if you really look at the greatest bull market, which is the 2003 to 2007, in fact, much smooth between 2004 and 2007 end. If you look at what happened to Nifty, for instance, Nifty and Bank Nifty, they bottomed out almost, you can say, 1,000 in end of 2002. And one good thing about this Bank Nifty is Bank Nifty actually bottomed out in September 2001. And Nifty bottomed out only much later in 2002. And in 2003, Bank Nifty had gone much ahead of Nifty, though Nifty was still struggling at below 1,000 end April 2000, end April 2003. April end 2003. If you look at Bank Nifty's performance itself, because the bull market, I told you, it will diverge in magnitude. If you look between 2002 end and 2008, and both the Nifty and Bank Nifty were at around 1100. Incidentally, Bank Nifty came into being only in September 2003. This has been extrapolated to 2002-2001 on the graph. The Nifty came into existence in 1996. Though we have extrapolated, we do extrapolate up to 1992. Like Sensex came into being in 86, people extrapolated to 1970, for instance. So Bank Nifty, Nifty moved from 1100 to about 6300. That's about 6 times during Vipin Bhai's debut. And Bank Nifty, for instance, it moved from 1100 to 10,775, which is 10 times. So if you had concentrated on Bank Nifty during the great bull market of 2003 to 2007, then you would have made much more than Nifty would have made. So, but those days, Bank Nifty was not popular, so most of us concentrated only on Nifty, and we actually missed the bull run because you see, we concentrated on Nifty. We were Nifty traders then, but it's like this in India: we look at Nifty but invest in stocks. So I sometimes wonder, after having crossed this 60 years, as to what am I doing? While I love Nifty, analyzing Nifty, and talking about Nifty and all that, at the end of the day, if I'm not trading in Nifty, which I don't trade too much now, I do trade, but not too much. My entire focus is on trading in stocks and investing in stocks. So we should be looking at stocks rather than, the indices. Indices many times don't give us a clear picture of where the economy is going. Especially, we have seen in case of Bank Nifty and Nifty, the divergence which happens at crucial times. There was one crucial time which happened then, and then you take the one which happened before Corona. Most people think Corona is the time where the market crashed from the highs. Actually, it didn't happen that way. Corona fear came out only in March of 2020. The Nifty topped out in January 2020 on January 20th, much before the budget. So the Nifty showed that the economy is weakening. But more important than the Nifty, the Bank Nifty topped out in around Christmas of 2019, when there was no news about Corona at all. Even in January 2020, there was not much of news of Corona, but definitely in December 2019, there was not much news, excepting there was some fear that some city in China was having this. So Bank Nifty is a fantastic barometer of where the market, where the economy is going and where the market finally will go. So one should actually pay more attention to Bank Nifty rather than Nifty at crucial turning points. Now come back to what happened in this year, for instance. If you see in March 7th, 8th, Bank Nifty bottomed out. Nifty tried to go up in April, then again fell down in May. That is when I became bullish on Nifty, which is around 15,700. Then it went to 16.6 and then broke 15.7 also and went to 15.2. That happened in June. But Bank Nifty did not hit the bottom, which we saw in March. That was a clear indicator that something is changing. And that only people who analyze that, realize that, have stuck on being bullish. If you look at on TV or in spaces or any media, you have hardly any person who is a prominent analyst or the strategist who is consistently bullish since last 6 months. We are not talking of our group here of 4 char yar, as I call it. We are maybe consistently bullish, but we are not famous. We are not, we don't come on TV. We don't. Nobody calls us for any other trader seminars and all that. So nobody. I can only think of one person who's been consistently bullish. That is N. Jaikumar. Other than that, I have not seen anybody who's consistently bullish like we have been. And I'm very surprised because you see the prices. If you all talk of Bhav Bhagwan hai and all that kind of stuff, the price is telling me that the Bank Nifty has bottomed out in March, and there is no way it has come anywhere near that. Even in June, it has tried to come, but it's not cracked it. Whereas Nifty cracked that. So I don't know what people are smoking because you see, day before yesterday, the market fell a few hundred points, and people start talking of already 14,000, 20% drop, and 12,000, and various 7,500. All kinds of numbers come out. So that is the first point I want to make, that the smart money is actually in the banks, not so much so in the Nifty. Just that is the first point I want to drive home. Then the second point was history. For instance, way back in 95-96, when we started our NSE membership, I am basically a researcher, market researcher. So I love numbers, quantitative analysis. So I used to look at, data in those days. There was no CNBC, there was no internet, it had just started. So everything one had to get it from hard copy. So the first big hard copy research report I got was done for Goldman Sachs, which talked about the banks. And it didn't talk of Nifty. It didn't talk of the overall market. It talked only of banks. It was about close to 1,000-page report. I was fascinated by that because they covered every bank and analyzed every bank. And when I try to find out from Bombay guys as to why the report is only on banks and not on India, for instance, they said banks is India. Banks is whenever any major investor comes and invests in a country, he looks at the financial services. Then it was banks, it was public sector predominantly, and not public sector so much because private sector was also growing, but it was a mixture of them. But today we're talking of FinTech, which Himja will cover. But the entire 1,000-page report talked of various banks and their growth. So a large investor, I told you the smart investors looks at banks. A large investor, especially a foreign investor who has no exposure to India, does look at banks. So that is the second point which I want to drive. And you remember that FIS came only after 94. This was in 95, which I'm talking of 95, 96. Now, the third point which I want to drive, I'm just going to make only 5 points. The third point which I want to drive is, as we discussed in our preface, the economy is growing. You need the push from the financial sector, mainly banks, and you have NBFCs, and then you have the fintechs. But banks are still the bulwark of the economy, any economy, anywhere, globally, and so much so in India. Because you see, any other iteration of banks, which is the fintechs, will take some time to reach the common man, the least common denominator, the person in the villages, the person in. Actually, I am right now sitting in Mysore. For instance, you have to come to Mysore, it will take some time. Forget about going to the smaller villages. Now, we are clearly seeing that, month after month after month, we are getting data which is positive as far as macros are concerned. The latest data, which came, I think, 2 days ago, was on advanced tax collection, which said it grown by 22%, corporate tax grew by 21%, the TDS grew by 35%. So, which means clearly the economy is growing. And you have corporate honchos coming on TV, like Deepak Parekh said, he has never seen such a bullish environment for the last 40 years. Similarly, I have not seen this kind of environment. See, when we started in 1991, when Harshad Mehta peak was 4,500, we again saw 4,500 in 2004. So we had a 12-year bear market, actually. Okay, so every time we feel bullish, the bears come and beat us. So, we didn't know what was hitting us. Today, we are talking of, are we going to make a new high in 12 months' time? Last new high we made was in October, and we're still not reached there. But we're still talking of, are we going to get a new high? Whereas for 12 years, we didn't really have a new high. We had a new high in early 2000, but that was again beaten down in few months because of this dot-com crash. So imagine for 12 years, you're sitting in the market, you entered the market, and you're seeing on the index nothing. But there is a lesson there. The lesson is clearly people who invested in the bear market then are today the geniuses of the world. People who invested in the bear market of between 2000 to 2003, like Junjunwala made all his money by investing in those times. So only in investing in bearish conditions will you make money when the bull market comes. So only people who invested in the last 6 months are now sitting on significant profits, whereas the Nifty and Bank Nifty have not gone up too much. Bank Nifty has gone up 15% from the low. Bank Nifty has gone up 25% from the low. Even here, you see, when the trend has changed, when the economic trend is changing, Bank Nifty is beating Nifty. Otherwise, Bank Nifty also should have gone up by only 15% because the beta is only 1.09. So the point I'm trying to make here is that despite all the bad news, Bank Nifty is doing extraordinarily well. Nifty has not done that well in comparison, but it has done superbly well vis-a-vis other countries' indices. And stocks, number of stocks have done extraordinarily well. I wonder why we spend so much time on only the Nifty, the mainline indices. Look down. There are so many bargains sitting there. Now, coming back to banks, the final point I want to make is what I'm titling is good criminals versus bad criminals. Now, you may find it very strange that how can you have a good criminal? You see, criminals are supposed to be bad, right? So if you say corporate criminals, who are these corporate criminals? You would immediately think of Satyam, for instance, a very good example. He's a corporate criminal. What was him and many other companies where they were suppressing losses. They were suppressing losses. So they always showed their companies showing profits. So when they got caught, they had no money and, they went bust. So this has been history of the capital markets. You always had corporates suppressing losses. So we call them criminals. But there is another set of criminals, which I would like to call them as good criminals. These are the guys who suppress profits. They are suppressing profits. They're not suppressing losses. The classic case are sitting in the banks. These are the guys. Previously, the multinationals used to be, accused of being criminals in terms of suppressing profits. But that is then. Today, you have these banks, especially the public sector banks, especially the small public sector banks and the small private sector banks, who are suppressing profits. What do I mean by that? There's something called PCR. It's not the put call ratio, which I think these option traders all look at it. I look at a PCR, which is the provision coverage ratio. Provision coverage ratio is basically saying that if I lend out 100 rupees, how much will I cover it for, because there will be doubtful debts. So people think, okay, if I lend out 100 rupees, say 50 rupees may come back, 50 rupees may become doubtful, and finally it may turn out to bad. So if I cover 50%, then my provision coverage ratio is 50. Now, RBI realized it in 2009-10 when, a lot of corporates were failing. So they demanded from the banks that they should have a PCR of 70%, which means you should assume that 70% of your money will either be doubtful debts or bad debts. Now, banks obviously protested because, you see, then it will remove a much part of their profits. It will not show in their P&L account. So even till 2000, this fight went on between the banks and RBI. RBI was forced to, make it like a voluntary kind of thing. They didn't enforce it. Even in 2018, there were many banks which were having a PCR below 60. They were unable to reach 70. Today, these banks are having 80 plus, which means they are saying every 100 rupees I'm going to lend, 80 rupees may or may not come back. So I'm covering it, I'm provisioning for it. Now that is completely, being extraordinarily safe. See, you cannot do business, or you cannot show that you are in business if you're going to say, I'm going to cover that much. They are lending, no doubt. But they are saying, boss, I am not going to get money back from you. That's a very negative way of doing things. So what is the good criminal part of it? The criminal part of it is that, they are trying to cover their bases. But the good thing is that when the economy booms, which is going to happen now or in the process of it, then these guys, we cannot do write-offs, because write-offs will happen only when the economy is doing badly and corporates are doing badly, and therefore you have, doubtful debts leading to bad debts. When the economy is doing badly, when the economy is doing well, then the corporates want to borrow more, so they begin to return the old loans. So then write-offs will not be there. There will be write-backs, which means it directly go into the P&Ls of the banks. So straight away, these guys, if they bring it down from 80 to 70%, the PCR, your profits will go up by 15%, straight in the bottom line, if the economy is doing well. I was completely shocked. Criminal number one, good criminal number one is the TMB chairman, who proudly boasted day for yesterday on CNBC saying, we have the highest PCR at 88%. I thought, what nonsense is this? Because the 88%, what are you saying? You're saying all money you're lending is not going to come back, right? So I thought, okay, why not look at, investing in TMB? Maybe I will do it. I have not done it, but I will do it sooner or later. So therefore, I have, my extended family have about 40% in banks, 30% in PSU, 30% of the portfolios in PSU banks, and about 10% in private sector banks. Because I'm extraordinarily bullish on the economy, therefore I'm bullish on the banking, and therefore I'm, I'm a guardian of the extended family wealth, which includes my son-in-law and his dad and his uncle and various people. So I have to take care of the guardian. Finally, these are my 5 points as far as the banking is concerned. The sixth point, which I was on the market, for instance, people jumped around and said a day before yesterday, the market fell between 2 days you had on which was that August 19th, it fell 200 points and then another 270 points, right? Sorry, no. What was the last one? I think it was, 470 points on Thursday and Friday. 126 and 346 points was 470 points. So people jumped and said, boss, the bear market has started. 2 points, I think people have failed to understand that great analysts who analyze it through all kinds of methods, right? From Elliott wave or Fibonacci or various Gann theory and various theories, Darwin's box theory and all that. You just look at the chart, for instance, and look at it, that there is a cyclicality to these markets. We all talk of market cycles. Basic cyclicality is on the third Friday of every month and the following Monday. There is a volatility. The volatility is huge. There is either a drop or there is a significant swing upwards. It depends on the T-5, what has happened to leading to that 5-6 days, which way the market has been going. If it's been extraordinarily hot, then on Friday the market falls, or Thursday or Friday market falls, and it moves on to Monday, and then Monday it bottoms out. That is the pattern which we have seen. You go back to August, for just a month ago. You had on 19th of August, you had a 200-point fall, and on a Monday, following that on 22nd, you had a 270-point fall. So it is a 470-point fall, which was similar to what happened day before yesterday. You see? So even if you see a fall further on Monday, in fact, on Tuesday also it fell and bounced back on Tuesday in August, on August 23rd, for instance. You can have a look at it. If you go back, when the market was again bullish, leading T-5 was in April 13th, in that fortnight, where on Wednesday it fell 55 points, Thursday and Friday were holidays, and Monday it fell another 300 points. That's a 355-point fall. And in May, the market was just about, getting up from its bearishness. The bearishness took it up by 456 points on a Friday, and then on Monday it pulled down by 51, because that was a bearish time in May, leading to May 20th. So you had a 400-point rise. And if you take in July, for instance, you had again, it was before July 15th, you had a bearish period. So you had a 339 points on those 2 days, that is Friday and Monday. So this Friday-Monday situation is very, very, very common. So there is nothing to be alarmed or nothing to be euphoric about. Sometimes when it goes up, you get euphoric. Sometimes when it falls down, we get, we feel that, the bear market has started. So I was completely taken aback when people started looking at what happened on Thursday and Friday and thinking the bear market has started. Now we've got 14,000 coming, whatever. All you need to do is to look at your numbers. If you look at your numbers, you will know that this is a very, very common phenomena. So I don't think you should get afraid. More important than that, significantly for this particular, this is the last point I'll make, is this. Look at Nifty. Everybody looking at Nifty. I say look at Bank Nifty also, right? Bank Nifty has fallen to, the Friday's closing is 40,776. The Wednesday's low, that is 2 days before, the low was 40,288. That means it is still 500 points above the low of Wednesday. It made an all-time high on Thursday. So when you're having an all-time high on Thursday, Friday's closing is 500 points above the Wednesday, and you are thinking a bear market has come. I really don't know on what basis people are talking about. Considering the current situation, I would like to end here by emphasizing that this environment is extraordinarily bullish. There is nobody who is table thumping bullish, which is a very good thing, because if many people are table thumping bullish, then we have to fear. If everybody is on the other side and they are tentatively bullish and predominantly bearish, this is the golden time for us to invest. And I have completely invested, excepting for that little money which I kept for Monday. Thanks, Vipin. Thank you. Thanks for everyone for hearing me out.
थैंक यू सैनिक सर, काफी अच्छा डेटा पॉइंट था आपका पूरी हिस्ट्री के साथ। तो अभी एक सवाल आया है अभी जी का अपने स्पेस के ट्वीट पे कि व्हाट अबाउट लिक्विडिटी इज क्विज ड्यू टू फेड। तो ये थोड़ा सा हाइपर करते हैं लोग जो इंटरेस्ट रेट हाइक पे। इस पे मैं अपना कुछ पॉइंट ऐड करना चाहता हूँ बीच में कि ये जो फेड अपना इंटरेस्ट रेट हाइक करता है या रिड्यूस करता है, सोचिए इसका इम्पैक्ट कहाँ पे आता है। वो मेनली ये सब चीज़ें तब करता है, सबसे ज़्यादा पैनिक तब होता है जब वो इन्फ्लेशन का मैटर आता है। इन्फ्लेशन किस चीज़ से होता है? कमोडिटीज से होता है। अभी क्या है, जो बड़े बड़े इन्वेस्टर हैं, बड़े बड़े फंड हाउसेस हैं, ये पैसे सपोज कि इन्होंने गोल्ड में लगा रहे हैं, कॉपर में लगा रहे हैं, एल्युमिनियम में लगा रहे हैं। अभी आप सोचो कि ये जब पैसा लगाते हैं तो इनका बहुत बड़ा फंड होता है, बहुत ही ज्यादा बड़ा फंड, बिलियंस में होता है। तो इनको क्या मिलता होगा कि अगर कॉपर 10% बढ़ा, उसके बाद वापस कूल हुआ, फिर 10% बढ़ा, वापस कूल हुआ, तो इनको कितना मिलता होगा? जाहिर सी बात है कि जब बहुत ज्यादा बड़ा फंड होगा तो एंट्री एग्जिट लोड बहुत ज्यादा बड़ा होता है। तो अगर सपोज करिए कि 10% अगर क्रूड बढ़ गया तो हमारे लिए बहुत बड़ी पैनिक हो जाती है, बट उनको जो टोटल लेना देना है वो 25-30%, उस 10% का 25-30%, मतलब 3% से ज्यादा, 4% से ज्यादा उनकी मार्जिन बचती नहीं है। बिकॉज एंट्री लोड और एग्जिट लोड उनका बहुत ही बड़ा होता है। उन्हीं के एंट्री के कारण उसमें मूवमेंट स्टार्ट होता है, उन्हीं के एग्जिट के कारण उसमें मूवमेंट डाउन होता है। तो उनके पास जो पैसा होता है वो इंटरेस्ट रेट में मतलब लोन लेके उठाया होता है, उनके ऊपर ब्याज का प्रेशर भी होता है। तो जब हमें ये पता है कि पागलों की तरह कमोडिटीज भाग रही है और वो हमारे फंड हाउसेस पैसा लगा रहे हैं, तो फेड जब इंटरेस्ट रेट हाइक करना शुरू करता है तो इनके ऊपर मार्जिन का प्रेशर आता है। तो इनका सीधे इम्पैक्ट यहाँ आता है। कमोडिटीज में छोटे छोटे मूवमेंट होते हैं, इक्विटी की तरह नहीं कि आज $100 का कोई स्टॉक है तो वो तो $200 जाएगा, हो सकता है $300, क्योंकि वहां पर जो इन्वेस्टमेंट होता है वो लॉन्ग टर्म होर्जन के लिए होता है, 2 साल 3 साल की नीयत से होता है। कोई ऐसा नहीं इन्वेस्ट करता कि बिलियंस डॉलर लगा दिया 2 दिन 4 दिन के लिए। कमोडिटी ट्रेडर का एक अलग कंसेप्ट चलता है। तो जब वहां पर इंटरेस्ट रेट टाइट करना शुरू करता है, अब वहां पे अगर शायद आपको जानकारी नहीं हो, वहां पे सुपर जो रिच पर्सन है उनके ऊपर 50% से ज्यादा का टैक्स लगता है। अगर अब उन्होंने पैसे कमाए, 10% का कमोडिटी में कोई इंप्रूवमेंट हो गया, उसके कारण हमारी इन्फ्लेशन शूट कर गई। अब 10% में उसको मिलना तो 3% से ज्यादा उसको मिलना नहीं, 1/3 से ज्यादा ही कांट गेट की, अगर उसने एंट्री किया और एग्जिट भी कर लिया। अब अगर 3% उसको मिलना है तो 3% में आधा तो उसको उठा के ब्याज, वो सरकार को टैक्स दे देना है, मुनाफे का इनकम टैक्स, तो बचा 1.5%। अब 1.5% में अगर ये ऐसे ही चवन्नी चवन्नी बढ़ाते चले जाएंगे तो सारा कमाई तो वो चला गया उस पे, सारी इनकी प्रॉफिट ऑफ मार्जिन तो चली गई फेड के खाते में। तो इसलिए क्या करते हैं कि जब भी जबरदस्ती पुश होता है कमोडिटीज, तो ये फेड रेट हाइक करना शुरू कर देता है, जिससे कमोडिटीज सारी कूल होनी शुरू करती है, जो मुनाफाखोरों के कारण, ये जमाखोरों के कारण जो बढ़ती है। तो वहां से इनकी लूज होनी शुरू करती है, क्योंकि जमाखोर बहुत ही लार्ज स्केल पे, बहुत ही बल्क में ट्रेड करते हैं, उनका मार्जिन बहुत छोटा सा होता है। तो जैसे ही ये रेट हाइक हो रहा है तो इसका इम्पैक्ट अब सोचते हैं लोगों को कि इक्विटी मार्केट पे बहुत बड़ा पड़ेगा। नहीं पड़ेगा, वो प्रेशर सिर्फ मेंटेन कर रहा है इन्फ्लेशन को एडजस्ट करने के लिए। और अगर उसका ये स्टेप है तो ये अच्छा स्टेप है। इसके कारण कोई डिफॉल्ट नहीं हो रहा है, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं हो रही है। अगर इंटरेस्ट रेट बढ़ रहा है तो जाहिर सी बात है कि जो भी चीजें डिस्टर्ब है उसको ठीक करने की कोशिश कर रहा है। राइजिंग इंटरेस्ट रेट में मार्केट पागल की तरह भागता है, पागल की तरह, क्योंकि कोई भी ग्रोथ हर्ट करना नहीं चाहता है, बैलेंस करना चाह रहा है। बैलेंस की बात हो रही है तो वहां पर आप उसको वैसे सोचिए, पता नहीं कहाँ कहाँ से लोग अजीब किस्म का डेटा पॉइंट लेके आते हैं और आपको बरगलाने लगते हैं, और बहुत ही गलत सलत डेटा चार्ट भी दिखाते हैं आपको, वो आप वेरीफाई भी नहीं कर पाते हो। और आपको शायद इस बात का आइडिया नहीं कि ये वो इन्फ्लुएंसर हैं जो एक्चुअली आपको पैनिक बरकरार रखना चाहते हैं, ताकि बड़े बड़े फंड हाउस आपसे सस्ते में माल उठा सकें। ये वही है जिनको आप आइडेंटिफाई कभी नहीं कर पाते हो। तो इस तरह से जो कि लिक्विडिटी स्क्वीज हो जाएगी तो ये हो जाएगा। जरा ये भी तो सोचो कि अभी पिछला 6 8 9 10 महीने में इन्होंने 2.5 लाख करोड़ का माल बेचा। एक बार सोचो कि 50,000 करोड़ का माल खरीदा है और वापस मार्केट सब वहीं पहुंच गई घूम फिर के 18,000। सोचो वो वापस 2 लाख करोड़ रुपए अगर इनको डालना होगा तो कहाँ होगी, 20,000 या 21,000। यही प्रॉब्लम होती है एंट्री एग्जिट में, कि जब उन्होंने इतना पैसा नीचे से पुश किया तो मार्केट आई 18,600, और उसमें से लगभग उतना ही पैसा खींचा तो मार्केट ने थाम लिया अपने आप को, और 15,500 के आसपास राउंड फिगर में सिमट के रह गई। क्योंकि जिसको भविष्य दिख रहा था उसने पैसा डाल दिया, उसको मौका मिल गया। जो भी पैनिक चल रहा था उसके पीछे, जो भी एक कॉन्फिडेंस था जिसका, अब वहां से इनको दोबारा एंट्री करनी पड़ रही है। और अभी उसमें से सिर्फ 1/5 पैसा, 20% पैसा वापस आया है। और उसका नतीजा यह है कि कहीं पर एटीएस टूट रहा है, तो कहीं किसी बैंक का ऑल टाइम हाई टूट रहा है, तो आदानीज के सारे शेयर ऊपर चले गए, वापस मेटल रिकवर हो गया, सब कुछ हो गया। सोचिए अभी 2 लाख करोड़ और आएगा तो फिर एक नया टॉप लगेगा, पैसा वही नया निकला, जितना निकला था उतना ही वापस आया और मार्केट ने एक नया टॉप बना दिया। और ये भी सोचना चाहिए कि उन्होंने जो निकाला था वो शायद उनकी टोटल इन्वेस्टमेंट का 5% कैपिटल था। जहां तक मुझे याद है $55 बिलियन का या फाई का पुराना इन्वेस्टमेंट बताया गया कि जिस समय पीक पे था तो शायद $55 बिलियन या उससे भी ज्यादा था, और $4-5 बिलियन का माल ही वो बेच पाए थे। तो वो ऐसा तो है नहीं कि अपने $50 बिलियन निकाल लेंगे एक दिन में और आपके पास पैसा है, या रिटेलर के पास पैसा है, डीआई के पास। ये सब सिर्फ एक छोटी छोटी साइकिलों के हिसाब से प्रॉफिट बुकिंग एंड जो भी मार्केट के साथ चलते रहना है, ये सारा नॉर्मल प्रोसेस है। जब तक कोई लॉजिकल आपको दिखे ना कि कोई प्रॉब्लम है, तब तक आपको कहीं पर भी डरना नहीं चाहिए। ये छोटी छोटी घटनाओं पे कि इनका रेट हाइक हो रहा है तो ये हो रहा है, ये सब साइकिलें आपको पूरी पढ़नी पड़ेगी। कितनी बार इसी बुल राइजिंग इंटरेस्ट रेट में जो मैडनेस आई तो वो कहीं ज्यादा पावरफुल थी। डाउन ट्रेंड मतलब इंटरेस्ट रेट घटते समय जब आप ग्रोथ देखेगा तो कभी भी देखेगा पागलपन की रैली नहीं होती, वो बहुत डर डर के होती है, वो एक रिलीफ रैली टाइप की होती है। तो अब इस इनके सवाल का जवाब तो दे दिया अभी जी का। हो सकता है कि वो संतुष्ट हो, और नहीं संतुष्ट हो तो भी नहीं कुछ कर सकते। तो अब हम आते हैं हिमजा के पास।
Add a little bit on that only. A very simple logic I will give you. See, when did Fed raise interest rates? They started on March 17th of this year, right? So they raised to about 2.25 or 2.5, somewhere in that region, right? So when did FII start selling? They started selling last April. What was the Fed rate that time? It was zero only. There was no increase in any rate. There was no tapering. There was nothing happening. RBI was doing their own QE. So for about 14 months, from April of last year to July of this year, or take till March of this year, when there was no increase in any rates, 11 months, there was zero increase, zero rates, the FIs were selling. So they were selling based purely on what they thought was the fundamental deterioration in our economy. Now, since March, the interest rates have increased. Since May, Indian interest rates have increased. So they have started selling. Now, in August, they have come with 20,000 crores buying. Don't the FIs know that the Fed has increased rates 4 times already? RBI has increased it twice. They will increase it further. With all that knowledge, they're still coming and buying 20,000 crores. Means what? Means that is discounted completely. It is not going to make any difference. So liquidity has always there been in this market since the last year when FIs have been selling. So simple common sense tells us when the Fed interest rates are zero, FIs are selling, and the Fed interest rates are 2.5, FIs are buying, which means clearly that interest rate cannot be a criteria for reduction in liquidity in Indian markets at least. Thank you.
थैंक यू सर। अच्छा, उनका इनपुट भी आ गया है कि वो जिन्होंने सवाल रखा था उन्होंने थैंक्स बोला है। तो अब हम आते हैं पारिक जी पे।
Good evening. So first of all, सैनिक सर ने काफ़ी इंटरेस्टिंग पॉइंट्स कवर किए। मुझे ये याद है कि जब भी हम लास्ट टाइम मिले थे तभी भी ऐसा ही साइकिल हुआ था। इट वाज द T-5 एंड तभी भी सैनिक सर ने मुझे बोला था दैट नेक्स्ट वीक का मूवमेंट देखना, and and I can tell you that when the market will again start showing the positive trend, it will be time for you to sell your mother-in-law's jewelry and buy equity. So I remember that. I mean, that was the extent of his conviction. Yes, sir. आप कुछ बोलना चाहते थे?
नहीं. I hope you didn't sell somebody's jewelry and buy. We met on a Sunday, right? So Tuesday, Monday, the market bottomed out. Yeah.
Yes, sir. And coming back to the point, I think the question which was raised right now about the Fed and interest rates, and in general, the fear factor that seems to be there. So of course, I mean, I'm going to start talking about banking sector and fintech, but before I get into that, there are 2 points I would like to add. That in the last week we have seen a couple of interviews from from some very, very prominent players, basically Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan. Of course, we know that JP Morgan is going to be adding India to their bond index very, very soon, the EM index. The second interesting aspect that is there is I think we had the Goldman Sachs chief say that that they feel that they withdrew from India very early. Of course, they have all returned now, but this is, when in the sell-off that we had seen. So, and obviously in terms of geopolitics or geoeconomics, currently, India is. I mean, there are two parts. One is India's internal situation, which is got to do with the cleanup of the banks, the structural reforms, the government's flagship policies, etc., which have given the sector, very very adequate momentum for it to take off. And the second aspect is more external, which is in terms of geopolitics, geoeconomics, where we say that all countries are invested in India. They are very positive about India. And that is also reflecting in multiple factors. Because obviously, if we live in a globalized world, we cannot live in isolation. And India getting independent weightage in the MSCI EM index is one indication. JP Morgan putting India on the bond index, that is where. I'm just first going to give you some stats of India's banking system. And before I get into FinTech, I'm going to have, Vinay is also going to share, he's going to share his thoughts on the bond market uh, because the bond market is such a strong factor of why the world at large is extremely positive of India's banking sector. And and as Senexa rightly said, if you're positive on the banking sector, it means you're positive on the economy. So, but anyway, first I'll just run some small stats. So, we know that the banking and insurance sector plays an important role in capital formation, which is essential for economic development of a country. It enables mobilization of savings of people scattered across the country to make it available for productive purposes. So, India's banking sector, we have public banks, we have private banks, we have regional rural banks, we have urban cooperative banks, we have rural cooperative banks, and then obviously we have cooperative credit institutions. As of September 21, the total number of ATMs in India crossed 2 lakh, out of which 47% were in rural and semi urban areas. Now, this is interesting because it is showing us the extent of organized banking penetration pan India. According to the RBI, bank credit on 31st December last year stood at $1.56 trillion. Microfinance funding, is also witnessing aggressive growth. One of the other, two, not one, two schemes of the government, the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana and the government's Digital India. Both these have been, very, very significant in creating the foundation for a strong, structured banking system in India. So, as of the 21st of February this year, accounts under the government's Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan, they numbered 44.63 crores. Deposits were $21.25 billion. Just to put in perspective, in 2011, only 35% of India was banked. In 2017, about 80% of India was banked. So that's a phenomenal jump. There has been another very interesting aspect as part of the cleanup program. RBI's public credit registry. So that's an extensive database of credit information which is available to all stakeholders. Then there was the Insolvency Bankruptcy Ordinance of 2017, which is assisting in the cleanup of the banks and, in general, inducing more security. All of the above has strengthened global confidence in the Indian banking sector. So when we say that why will smart money or external money, big money start coming in, they come in when they feel that they have a lot more confidence in the Indian banking sector. And that starts with the central bank. So confidence in the central bank, that is where everything begins. And then the big money starts flowing in. And so, since we usually, as retail investors, focus more on the equity market and we don't participate in the bond market, most of us are not even in a condition, we are not in a position to participate. But the bond market is effectively a greater reflection of the world's collective belief in a country, as that actually shows their confidence in the central bank to navigate any significant crises. Once that confidence is there, the rest follows. So, this is a very, very important point which I think we need to keep in mind in terms of fundamentals, that this is a very, very strong fundamental. And this, and because of that, we should try to not get too influenced by, like small falls, small rises, whatever. And we should not, at least hopefully, fall prey to the panic sell. So anyway, first I'm going to have Vinay talk about the bond market, and then I will come back and and continue my talk on fintech.
Uh,
Vinay, can you please explain? Because
yes.
Vinay does this much better than I do.
Thank you, MJ. I'll try my best to put across my understanding of this. See, this regarding the bank and the bond markets. Bond markets, that everybody knows, is much bigger and more importance to the central bankers than the equity markets, as people have understand. Because basically, bond markets are, you are trusting the government, you're trusting the central bank, you are trusting the story of the country where you are investing in. It's basically the foreign money flowing in to finance the debt of the government for their infrastructure spending or future spending. Now many people are looking at this very skeptically, that that this has been around for the last 10 years, that the Indian bonds are going to be included and all that stuff. But we have to understand that in earlier it was not included because there were systems were not in place. Now there is more trust in the Indian economy, there's more transparency in the government that is giving out the data. And basically, as I told, the bond market is like financing the government. So now with the JP Morgan bond inclusion, they're expecting a flow of $30 billion in that particular bond market. So that will open up. That will what will it do for India? That will reduce the yields, and that would attract foreign inflows into the bond market, and it would enable government financing basically. And if you see, in China also, there was just about 2% of the bond market. The foreign investors held only 2% till they opened up their market about a decade back. Now they're holding about 7.6% of the government debt. So right now, just imagine when, if the investors are betting that India is going to be the next growth story, where there's stability as well as good expectations of government servicing the debt. Because what is bond market strength? Because investors are thinking that yes, the government will be able to service the debt. What is happening in the bond market in US is that the rates are rising there phenomenally. So why the sell-off is being seen? That because they were not expecting the interest rates to go high. So, and bond market is one of the most stable investment vehicle for all the big fund managers, as well as banks or big pension funds or anything. So the thing is, and if you've seen recently, if I don't know that, in the emerging markets funds in the last I think 2 months back, have seen the first inflows in the last 1.5 years. That means the funds are thinking that the emerging market debt has bottomed, and they're feeling relatively well that is going to do well in the near future. And regarding one more thing I wanted to clarify is that in May 2022, when Mr. Das had abruptly raised the interest rates on 4th May, given that in the night the Fed was supposed to raise the interest rate by 75 BPS, but he ended up doing hiking 50 BPS. Many people thought, what was the need for the hike in the interest rate by RBI on an unscheduled day? See, the reason, it was not a sudden realization that inflation is a big problem. The realization is the interest rate differential. If Mr. Das wouldn't have raised the interest rate suddenly on the day of Fed hiking 75 BPS, 50 BPS in May, the next day the bond market and the rupee market would have crashed. And people today talk about yen falling to 140, 150. You have to understand, this is the basic game. The bond market moves, the yield market moves on the basic concept of interest rate differential. The Japan is still printing money, and it's an export based economy, still printing money, while on the other hand your US is raising interest rates. So that is the reason why yen is falling so sharply against the dollar. What is happening with euro and pound is that the investor confidence in the government being able to service the debt due to rise in inflation and rise in interest rate is going down. So people are exiting that market. And when the central bank falls behind the curve, is that they are lagging the inflation hike. That is what happens to the currency. So, as we have been also saying that in the recent days, the dollar was moving higher, not due to dollar strength, but majorly due to the weakness in euro and sterling. And last week, you saw it that when the Europe Bank came out with a view of the raising the interest rate by 75 basis points the next quarter, the dollar started giving up its gains. Then again, there was some speculation of they won't be going so fast. Then again, that led to some hike in the dollar. So basically, bond markets, I think, with regard to India, just I would like to conclude on this, that it is showing the confidence of the global funds going ahead in India, and they don't come for a year or two. These are all long-term funds, because if you're having $1 billion under management, there is a particular higher percentage of amount that you allocate to fixed investment funds like bonds, because of bonds in US and, and treasuries in US, because they are the most safest among the investment vehicles. So I think with the bond market opening up, and with $30 billion slated to come into the next year and 1.5 years, I think that's a very big thing, and we are already moving towards it. And the importance of bond market has to be always looked into while investing around the market, around the world. That's all from my side, sir, on this. Hemjay, back to you.
Thank you. So I'm gonna continue. So as I was saying, according to me, the biggest revolution in the banking sector will come from the digital era. The Government of India's flagship Digital India program has ushered in banking services, making them available for the majority of the population. Digital payments have become common. India is now the largest market for Android based mobile lending apps, accounting for 82% online lending globally. That's a huge number. Also, with digital payments, credit disbursement will undergo a radical shift. We have already seen that post demonetization, debit cards radically replace credit cards as a preferred payment mode. In August 22, this year, UPI recorded a high of 6.57 billion transactions, which amounted to rupees 10.72 trillion, which is an increase of about 4.6% per data by National Payments Corporation of India. That is, the transactions rose 85% by volume, 67.85% by value year on year since inception in 2016. Another important metric is the RBI's Digital Payment Index. This figure in March 20, this is at the time when the pandemic had started gathering steam, was 207 rupees. In March 22, this figure increased to 349, which basically is indicating the value shift uh, in uh, in digital payments. And this is just the beginning. So fintech, is no longer just a jargon. Global investments in fintech, they have doubled to about 112 billion from 51 billion. An industry report says that India's fintech industry will grow to $150 billion within the next 5 years. We already have more than 2,000 fintechs here. Most of these have set up shop in the last 5 years. Of course, the pandemic has helped. We have gone on to produce at least 8 unicorns. Fintech is basically reimagining the entire banking space, with banks moving towards digitalization. Fintech has taken this step forward, making banking paperless, presence-less, and cashless. So I think for a while, for those of us that have been living in a urban environment, we have been seeing banks working in a more automated environment where banks are okay with improving automation levels. But the difference that fintech has brought has helped banks reimagine the way service was offered to from end to end customers. I remember reading a few pointers by our finance minister just a couple of days back when she mentioned that banks should not insist on customers being able to speak the local language. Now, this may sound like a very, very small, a very insignificant thing, but in reality, this has a lot of implications because you want your banking experience to be pleasant, you want it to be comfortable. Now, if you are living in a state which is not your home state, or if you are living there for a while, you may or you may not be able to speak the language. We are not passing any value judgment here. But the whole point of it is that banking, if it has to become completely organized, it has to penetrate every aspect of one person's life. The experience needs to be meaningful. It needs to be a lot more pleasant than what it is. So fintech was originally introduced as a technology used as a back-end systems of financial institutions and banks. There's also a reason for that, which is the 2008 financial crisis, which I'll come to in a bit. But its definition has now changed significantly. Fintech has now become a combination of applications which are consumer based. So, one can trade stocks, manage funds, pay for insurance, pay for food. It has effectively prompted startups to use digital technology to come up with innovative products and services, using a combination of factors to make the entire payment experience pleasant. I mean, let's face it. Every morning we wake up, we look at our social media, we look at Twitter, we look at Instagram. For those of us, we still look at Facebook. Nobody wakes up and says, I am so excited to pay my electricity bill today. आई डोंट थिंक ऐसा दुनिया में कोई भी है ना जिसको इसका एक्साइटमेंट होता है. Why? Because the experience is not, it's not meaningful, it's not personalized. So when you think about it, globally there are 1.7 billion people who don't have bank accounts. So for fintech, this is a savior because they have a very easy option to participate and access financial services without the need of a bank account. So effectively, what this means is you are moving towards greater financial inclusion because you are able to provide customers direct access through simple yet cutting edge technology. Now, personal banking has obviously become more digital since the pandemic's onset because that's when we were not able to go to the branches. So customers started becoming a lot more comfortable with online services, and I think that has really worked in India's favor. Digital banking has become the norm for most of the population. The fact that we have a significant amount of population that is on the younger side has also helped. But on the other hand, even the older population has access to smartphones. The other thing about fintech is, it is hyper personalized. So there are language options. A person doesn't feel that he or she is unable to access the best of services because they cannot, because they can't speak English or they can't speak XYZ language. So it is natural that most consumers feel that a digital native fintech can address their financial needs much better than a traditional bank. मतलब आपको बैंक में जाके ये तो नहीं सुनना पड़ेगा ना कि अभी लंच टाइम है तो इसको करने को ना अभी 1 घंटा और लगेगा, आप जरा बैठिए. So this digital push has opened the door for fintechs to basically emerge as challenger banks to disrupt the industry as customers started questioning the need for traditional banks. And I think this is a very important point because public sector banks are very, very important to drive a country. But at the same time, they are not known for creating a very, very wonderful banking experience. So a little bit of healthy competition, a little bit of, good old fashioned competition, the need to be a little more efficient, the need to be a little bit more engaging is always a good thing. Healthy competition is always very, very good for an industry. So, which is why when the bank saw that two-thirds of customers now say that they prefer fintech solutions rather than legacy banking, obviously they realize that this is something that they had to worry about. Why? Because legacy banking institutions have pretty much remained unchanged. Though private banks have come in, they are giving out a better banking experience. Even where I stay, I mean, most of my family's accounts are with the State Bank of India, and for me, any banking has to be done till 3 o'clock. If it crosses 3 o'clock, I cannot bank. But there are lots of private banks in my locality, and all of them work much later in the day. So obviously, private banking has brought in a much better experience. So what one of the most important reforms that effectively this space has created is a democratization of banking, which means that we need to ensure that banking is no longer a privilege of a select few. And when I say that, I don't just mean in terms of volume of accounts. Yes, in terms of volume of accounts, the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan has given a huge number of accounts. The question is, we are talking about majority of the population using these accounts for their various purposes. So if we are basically going to draw a parallel, I think one of the closest parallels about how we reimagine this banking space is, let us look at how the internet revolution shaped. So initially when it started, we had a monopoly of ISPs. Then gradually they became more open source. You had greater choices. Now you have now you have so many options, whether it's your email, whether it's your domain, whether it's your browser. I mean, so many things. So this opportunity created a huge level playing field. The same thing will repeat in fintech, and that indirectly is going to give a huge boost to banking. Why? So, why is fintech important for the growth of banking? Simple. Like I said, the average user in India has a mobile phone. This mobile phone is typically a smartphone. It offers multiple language options. It is convenient to use. It is easy to use. It doesn't matter which part of India. If you have network, which is there for the most part, you are able to use it. You can use it anywhere to surf the internet, watch videos. So, why should banking be restricted? And why should banking be dependent on being able to travel, being able to spend time, reach a destination, and things like that? Because before fintechs, banks traditionally operated like monoliths with whom we had our money, we had our accounts. But most importantly, we had our data. And that data was locked in. And with that, the flexibility was locked in. Because at its heart, banking has three functions: core banking, payments, and the tie up with merchant systems. There's a very interesting metric. The first credit card was launched almost 50 years ago by Bank of America. At that time, it had the account number. It didn't have the 16 digit that we see today. But in terms of appearance, it pretty much looked the same. What does that tell you? That things have not really changed too much. Even today, if we were to sit and look at the different credit cards, and if we just literally break it down to the core of what is it giving, what are the two differentiations? Interest rates and rewards. Apart from that, what is the difference? But today, now that we are living in Web 3 or the Industrial Revolution 4, think about the other digital experiences that you have when you decide you want to utilize a payment which is not banking related. So, whether it is something you want to purchase on Amazon, whether it is something you want to buy from Facebook, Flipkart, etc., I'm not going to see the same feed that you are going to see. What are we seeing? So, we are basically going to an era of hyper personalization. Where is the personalization in banking? It's not there. Also, in terms of technology, 70% of legacy financial institutions have tech infrastructure that is not future ready. This industry has not witnessed a significant software refresh, which is why now that embedded banking has come together, we are going to see a beautiful marriage of banking with fintech. With this, fintech will effectively unbundle banking services. And banking will become such a core part of life via all utility payments, financial planning, budgeting, that it will be able to translate into experiences, better rewards. Greater use means a higher value metric, which also leads to a more structured digital economy, which indirectly leads to a stronger banking system, a more consolidated banking system, a more robust sector. Why? Because unorganized sector starts fading away gradually. Because embedded banking has now created a reality where legacy financial institutions will leverage their core strengths, which is the user data, their core banking, which is very, very important. Because as Senex so rightly said, that fintechs are there, but banks are the key. So, fintech on top of banks. They basically give you an experience in which they will use their core strengths to provide a digital and personalized banking experience on technology. Now, when we bring in, artificial intelligence, data, etc., it is going to, give customers specific branded digital experiences without providing a different level of differentiation. Now, lending and payments will bring together two different parts of banking at the same time. But the customer doesn't really care. The average customer, what does he want when he goes to a bank? He wants speed, he wants convenience. What does a legacy bank do? They want to focus on their core systems, they want to focus on remaining risk averse, they want to focus their on their fundamentals. This is where this marriage, when it comes together, it's able to leverage this partnership to, to basically elevate the entire industry. And this effectively will serve as an engine for the transformation of macroeconomics. The key segment in the development of financial markets in especially the emerging world has been the introduction of new financial technologies that appear as a result of conservative financial management. The exact definition of fintech, if we were to see, will be digital, mobile payments, transfers, e wallets, online lending, P2P platforms, crowdfunding, online funds, online insurance, etc. Earlier I said that there was a reason why fintech was created, and I said that it is connected to the 2008 global crises. So, what effectively had happened in 2008, the crises, it exposed serious problems and weaknesses in the financial regulation and supervision. One of the weaknesses identified was poor risk data collection and reporting in banks. This led to the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision publishing its principles for risk aggregation and risk reporting in 2013. And this set minimum standards for data collection and management, which, in short, required additional investment in technology to restructure. It's the same framework, the same data, and the same outward structure that effectively has created the core structure for fintechs, which now people are utilizing in different manners. Because of this, we were able to see the transition of financial market participants to low capital intensive models. And as a result, we also got, an equalization of market conditions and fintech companies. Now imagine a system where you have an account and there is an app which allows you to customize a payment for your child. How will it do that? It will say, I'm going to block certain vendors. I'm going to allow only a one time payment to X person. I'm not going to allow payments post a certain time. A system that can actually create family budgeting. It can create utility payment budgeting. It can link it with rewards automatically. So, this way, your payments become a meaningful experience that is hyper personalized. This kind of system can also help in capital management. In some other countries, we have seen that there have been fintechs which are working on, advising for capital management with robots, programs, applications for financial planning, algorithm exchange trading, money saving services, etc. So as we can see that the whole aim of fintechs is gradually to encompass almost every aspect. And here, the biggest advantage of the structural reforms that RBI has done is the advantage of real time credit information systems and directories. When these combine, It ensures greater access to credit to those that actually need it. So they don't need to go to nefarious sources of funding. They don't need to approach the disorganized sector. Banks will also benefit because they have an improved, optimized risk management process. So they don't feel as averse to lend to, let us say, a first time borrower. And more people are able to participate in the credit growth. Another advantage is with cloud, banks can offer their products anywhere in the world because services are centralized. Now, when I think in one of our previous spaces, when we spoke about recession, we said that for India during the COVID pandemic and even before, because since we are a part of the EM basket, we, one of the biggest problems we have is a paucity of resources. So, unlike the West, we were not able to stimulate, fiscal at will. So, we had to resort to structural reforms. Now, that has been a huge advantage because fintech companies have really helped in mitigating the negative economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, from economically weaker households to SMEs, the fintech industry has improved access to banking, account transactions, insurance, and credit for almost everyone. The average Indian home today uses fintech for pretty much everything from paying for hotels, paying for travel, mobile recharges, utility payments, grocery payments, pharmacy payments, online shopping. A study by the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, it said that the digital economy contributes almost 8% of the Indian GDP growth, and that by 2025, this can create more than $1 trillion of economic value for the country. Hence, the relationship between the banking industry and the fintech sector is mutually progressive. When we align the cleanup of public sector banks, the reforms proposed by RBI, the aggressive growth of fintech services in India, whose whose story is effectively just beginning because the fourth industrial revolution is only now going to take off with India formally launching 5G services. And when we now add that new metric of India being added to the bond market, we are looking at a very, very attractive and positive time in the banking sector. Thank you.
थैंक यू हिंजा. विनय भाई,
हाँ
आर
जी
यू
सर.
ओके?
यस यस सर, ठीक है, बेटर है.
ओके,
सर
तो
आई जस्ट थोड़ा ब्रीफ करंट सिनारियो के बारे में बताना चाहूँगा, मार्केट्स के बारे में. आई थिंक सैनिक सर एंड हिमजा जी ने बैंकिंग वगैरह के बारे में बहुत विस्तार तरीके से, अच्छी तरीके से समझाया है. थोड़ा मैं करंट मार्केट सिनारियो के बारे में बोलना चाहूँगा बस.
हाँ जी, बिल्कुल, प्लीज.
I had actually posted a chart just a day before that for people who are thinking that there's a bear market or a bull market, I just posted a chart about 3 days back. It's pinned on my timeline that how the beauty of this leg of rally was that it was, it was built upon the fear amongst the public, and that is the biggest trait of a bull market. Okay, in that chart, I have highlighted how every single bottom or every single panic was formed during the uptrend from June till date. So the first in that is very clear that the market bottomed on the day when FOMC, Fed came out with a 75 BPS hike, which the market started fearing since April that the pace of hikes was unknown in the market, and those fears were realized on June 16, 17 when they hiked it by 75 BPS. The second knee-jerk reaction in the markets, I'm talking about the index, of course. The other sectors kept going up. I'm just talking about Nifty because that is what I think universally is watched by people who plan to invest in the market. So that is what I'm talking about. Then the next knee jerk was when Reliance fell about 8% on 1st July. That day also people wrote off that it's over. Now the king has fallen by 8%. The market is going to crash. That was another fear that was bought by the smart money very heavily. And from there we started rallying. Then the third dip, the third shakeout again, the fear inducing market war in the market was on 14 July when the US reported its highest CPI number of 9.1%. Everybody was talking about highest inflation 40 50 years whatnot, and everything was there, and that again there was a dip again that was bought. Why? Because people were, the selling was going on since last 3 months, expecting the inflation to hit new highs. So that fear was realized there, where the people were selling, smart money bought that dip aggressively, and where we have come from there till now. Then again on 26th July, the other news that was spread across the market was the Walmart guidance. Walmart being the biggest barometer for retail business in US. Again, they lowered their guidance and they gave some negative commentary about the economy, which shook the market for a day or two. Again, that dip was bought smartly. Again, the market started climbing higher. Then the next was on 29/8. That was a Jackson Hole meeting on 26/8 when Mr. Powell again came back and reiterated what he said in the last meeting on 27 July, that we will concentrate on inflation and some sizable hikes are going to continue until we think that inflation is under control. Then now the latest fall, what people are talking about, the last, as सैनिक सर told कि 2 दिन में लोग वापस bear market का बात करना शुरू कर दिए. What drove that fall was again a guidance by FedEx, the company in US which has operations globally, of course, for courier, for delivering goods. So basically their commentary again shook the market away, and again that took the steam off the market, thinking that the global economy is recession. So how the narrative has changed in the last 1 week, from high CPI numbers to higher expectations of 100 BPS in the upcoming meeting, to suddenly about the recession part of the economy. So basically, if you're seeing, this whole bull market is being built upon the fear. Now, if you are talking about US markets, you cannot expect, because that is a very matured economy, and the interest rates over there have been historically low. So obviously, you cannot expect the markets there to be in a bull market. That's a mother market for the whole world, basically. So just what the market there needs is stability. And what has happened in India during the same time is, I think, as Vijay sir also pointed, there has been a big buying in bank, autos, FMCG. All these three represent the consumer demand in the economy, or the the bet by the investors on the economy. It is not some speculation, or it is not something about short covering. I think what we have seen from June till date is purely buying by the FIIs in the consumer names, and I think in the going in the days ahead we are going to see short covering in the IT names. Why I say so? Because still now we have not seen any short covering. This has been purely buying, which is built, as I told, on the fear. And I think from once the FOMC, people are expecting FOMC to start cutting rates. I think that's foolish. Nobody sane should be expecting FOMC to cut rates for the equity market to go up. It is only by the consistency, whether they are panicking or they're not panicking, that is important right now. We have to focus on that. And if you're seeing in the last 1 week, there's something called the Fed Watch tool on CME, where you get the bets of the investors, of the upcoming rates about 100 BPS or 75 BPS. After the CPI print last week of higher than expected inflation numbers, those bets went from 0 to 35% of a 1% hike on the upcoming meeting. But now, after the data which came in yesterday, and the same bets have gone down to 10 to 15%. So basically, this is all part and parcel. This news flow will continue. This fear psychosis will continue, because, as the Vipin Bhai also says, in the bull market, what happens is, when the big money wants to buy something in the market, they cannot buy at higher prices. They need people to let off their stocks so that they can buy those big quantity in the fear what we are witnessing. So basically, I think what I can say, looking at the whole market right now, is don't look at day-to-day movements of the market. Look at the trend, and if FMCG, auto, and banking sector are going up, PSU is going up. This is something big coming up. As last 3 months back, also we had discussed that all the factors which were going in India's way after the war are now coming into, in the media, and everybody's talking about it. So it will take time till the mass realizes what is happening. It's the smart money that will make money, because they know before things happen. That is very clear. Otherwise, why would the market bottom on June 16th, and why would the market top out in January when there was no talk about in October, when there was no talk about inflation? Because the smart money in October, maybe they knew that the central banks are going to lose control over inflation. They started creating positions while people were thinking it's going to be a never-ending bull market. And now when people thought the market is over, the market is going to be finished, the smart money started reversing their positions. And of course, what I would say is, don't think this is a short covering rally like in January or April, because those were very short-term rallies, and the kind of stocks that were moving up were completely different that time, and this time is completely different. Just go and have a look at the sectors which are performing well, what kind of structures they are making if you're a technical guy, and how the money is, and how the Asian markets are performing specifically. It is not a small thing that when there's a crisis in Europe and US, you get to see a bond, you get to see flows into a bonds market of emerging market. That means something is changing. You cannot call this a decoupling. You have to understand that decoupling is something that दुनिया में कुछ भी हो अपन अपना कुछ नहीं होगा. The thing is, decoupling only means that as at a particular point of time when the money was free, everything used to rise together, everything used to fall together. But when there is a charge now being attached to money by the central banks like US, Europe, any other in the world, people are going to choose the best investment destinations. So you will not you the decoupling and outperformance are two very different things. So it could be very much possible that US markets rise 5 to 10% or be ranged in 10 to 15% until unless there is a pause in the rate hikes. But the Indian market will keep performing, because obviously you're not going to, if somebody is coming with $1 trillion or $1 billion in India, he's not going to wait for the news to come out, no, that everything is fine and then come and invest in India. That is what we do as retail, or we do as masses. So that is what I just wanted to explain, that just understand the whole structure of the market. Don't get buoyed by the narratives being set. It's been a 9 months of consolidation between 18,600 to 15,671, where multiple times it has gone up and down, up and down. We don't know what kind of money has gone out of which stocks rotation, which we have highlighted earlier also, that IT and metals have taken the beating because those were the two biggest beneficiaries of the free money. And now all the all the economy centric stocks are doing well. So I would just say, keep following the good things and keep watching the banking sector, where the credit growth is going to be the key. And the last 6 months, the credit growth is coming back. Mr. Parekh from HDFC also has been such a veteran who has said in his life he's never been so bullish about the economy. These are not small things. They have their reputations at stake. If they're saying something, there's something. What they are saying, we may not be saying. We are just retailers. They are seeing the whole banking sector evolve in front of themselves. But that's all I wanted to say, Vipin bhai, I think.
थैंक यू विनय. तो ये तो रहे सबके डेटा पॉइंट और फीचर्स. मेरे ख्याल से म्यूट कर देना चाहिए बाकी लोग को. ओके, थैंक यू. तो अगर इस सारे डेटा पॉइंट को हम लोगों ने स्टडी करके, डीप स्टडी करके, बाकी लोगों के व्यू देख के ये कलेक्ट किया है, तो ये पूरी तरह से एक ही तरफ डायरेक्शन देता है कि हम एक बड़े बुल की तरफ जा रहे हैं. यस, बट अब अगर ये सोचिएगा कि असल में मार्केट चलता कैसे है, अब आते थोड़ी सी साइकोलॉजी की बातें करते हैं, मार्केट की बातें करते हैं. कि अगर सारा डेटा फीचर दिखा रहा है, जिस तरह से बड़े बड़े इकोनॉमिस्ट ने, डेटा ने, ये सब चीजें डायरेक्शन दे रही हैं कि मार्केट सिर्फ बुल की तरफ है और बहुत बड़े बुल की तरफ आगाज हुआ है, तो इसका मतलब कि जितने भी लोग हैं जिनको पता चल जाएगा वो तो घर बैठ जाएंगे खरीद के. तो एक पुरानी आपने देखी होगी, अभी तो आजकल ये बंद हो चुका है, लेकिन पहले टर्म चलता था कि रात में जिस चौकीदार को हम पैसे देते थे चौकीदारी करने के लिए, वो चौकीदारी तो करता था, लेकिन अपनी नौकरी वो कर रहा है ये बताने के लिए वो जागते रहो और घर के सामने डंडा पीट के जाता था, वो ये बताने के लिए स्पेशली कि भाई मैं ड्यूटी पे हूँ. तो हमारे कुछ भाई लोग, जिस तरीके से मार्केट चलती है, तो हमें बहुत से लोग डराने के लिए आते हैं कि नहीं नहीं ये सब बुलिश है, सब कुछ है, लेकिन जागते रहो क्योंकि कभी भी वापस गिर सकता है. और थोड़ी सी भी एनवायरनमेंट खराब होता है, छोटी छोटी जर्क आती है और उस पर आपको इतना डरा देते हैं कि जैसे सर्दी जुकाम हुआ है तो बस अब ये इंडी है, अब इसके बाद अब इसकी वापसी नहीं होगी अगर ये हॉस्पिटल में एडमिट हो गया. तो डराना मार्केट का काम है. आपको चीज़ों को ठीक से समझना चाहिए. जिस तरह से डेटा पॉइंट रखे गए ये सब लॉन्ग टर्म विजन के साथ के डेटा हैं, और मार्केट में हमेशा झपकियां आती रहेंगी इधर उधर से, कभी यहाँ कुछ हो गया कभी वहाँ कुछ हो गया और आप डरते रहेंगे. एक जिस तरह से हम लोगों ने ये पुरानी स्टडी की है, हमें जैसा दिख रहा है कि ये हम एक बहुत अच्छी लंबी रैली के लिए है। हाँ, टुकड़ों में चलेगी, कभी एक तरफा नहीं चलेगी। अब देखें तो अगर 18 महीने की पहली रैली थी, उसके बाद आपने 20% का करेक्शन देखा और एक अच्छा करेक्शन था, अलग-अलग सेक्टरों में 50-50% का करेक्शन हुआ, लेकिन हर जगह नहीं हुआ। और उसी करेक्शन के दौरान थोड़ी बहुत झपकियां लेके ऐसे-ऐसे स्टॉक हैं जो ऑलमोस्ट डबल भी हो गए हैं। चाहे वो आप आईटीसी देखिए, चाहे टीवीएस मोटर देखिए, कोई 50%, कोई 60%, कोई 70% का इसी पीरियड में ग्रोथ भी दिया है। मार्केट जस्ट रिकवर ही हुई है और इन लोगों ने नए हाई मारे हैं। तो जहाँ पे बूम चालू है वो आगे चल रहा है और ये एक कंटिन्यू लंबी रैली होनी है। मेरे ख्याल से अभी आपने एक छोटी सी साइकिल देखी है और मार्केट मिनिमम 3 साइकिल में चलता है, मिनिमम 3 बुलिश साइकिल में चलता है। लास्ट अगला जो है ज्यादा मेच्योर होगा, क्योंकि पहला जो है साइकिल थोड़ा एक्साइटमेंट में था, 150% का रिटर्न आपको 18 महीने में मिल गया। और हमने लास्ट में एक स्पेस भी किया था कि अगला रैली कैसा होगा। माइट बी कि ऐसा ही एक्साइटिंग भी हो सकता है। और कई बार जनरली होता क्या है कि वो रिटर्न भी थोड़ा ज्यादा देता है, बट टाइम बहुत ज्यादा ले लेता है, क्योंकि इसमें लार्ज कैप का मूवमेंट होता है और पूरी तरह से मार्केट में ओवरऑल ग्रोथ आती है। इनिशियली जो है सबसे ज्यादा जो ग्रोथ आई थी वो बहुत ज्यादा एक पैनिक फॉल के बाद आई थी, तो बहुत ही लमसम अनाप शनाप भी स्टॉक्स मूव कर गए थे। बट ये एक लंबी रैली हो सकती है। और सारी स्टोरी जो सबसे बड़ी ग्रोथ है, चूंकि अपनी इंडिया डोमेस्टिक बेस्ड मार्केट है और आज जो भी पिछला गुजरा वक्त है, इसमें हमें सबसे ज्यादा सेफ हेवन यही दिखा। जिन भी जो भी आपके बड़े इन्वेस्टर हैं या जिनको आप एफआईआई के नाम देते हैं, तो उनको सबसे ज्यादा सेफ हेवन यही लगा इंडिया। और यही कारण है कि आरबीआई ने अपनी बॉन्ड मार्केट को ग्लोबली ओपन किया और जितने भी स्टेप ले रहा है वो ऐसा नहीं होता कि वो हम कर देते हैं। हमें भी पीछे से इंटरेस्ट आता है कि यार अगर आप ऐसा करते हो तो हम कर देंगे। जैसे एक तरह से कहते हैं कि हमने अगर कोई भी काम के लिए हम पहले एक बार क्वेरी लेते हैं कि भाई अगर हम ऐसा करेंगे तो क्या होगा। ऐसा थोड़ी है कि आरबीआई ने आज कर दिया कि आज हम ग्लोबल मार्केट के लिए हम ये खोल रहे हैं तो पता चला कल को कोई आया नहीं। बिल्कुल वैसे ही होता है जैसे कई बार आईपीओ फ्लॉप होते हैं या कई बार एफपीओ फ्लॉप होते हैं। तमाम तरह के प्रोजेक्ट हैं जो फ्लॉप होते हैं। तो जो भी स्टेप है ये लॉन्ग टर्म स्टेप जा रहा है और सबसे ज्यादा जो इम्पैक्ट होगा, सबसे ज्यादा अगर कोई बेनिफिशियर होगा तो वो जाहिर सी बात है कि बैंकिंग सेक्टर होगा। पीएसयू बैंक पे सैनिक सर बहुत बुलिश हैं, हम भी बहुत बुलिश हैं। उसका कारण है कि इनकी जो बैलेंस शीट है, जो पीछे सबसे ज्यादा बुरी हालत में थी, वो सबसे ज्यादा क्लीनेस्ट वे में है। और एक बात ये समझनी चाहिए कि पीएसयू बैंक क्या है, प्राइवेट बैंक से कहीं ज्यादा बड़ी स्ट्रेंथ है इनकी। ये वो बैंक है जिनकी कस्बे कस्बे तक पकड़ है, एकदम लोअर लेवल से लेके हाईएस्ट लेवल तक। ये मरीन ड्राइव पे भी इनकी ब्रांच मिलेगी, नरीमन पॉइंट पे भी मिलेगी, हर जगह मिलेगी आपको। और एकदम कस्बे लेवल पे भी जाएंगे वहां पर भी इनके ब्रांचेस मिलेंगे, इनकी पकड़ है। तो पीएसयूज बैंक जो पिछले 12 साल से स्ट्रगल कर रहे थे अपने प्रॉब्लम्स का रहना, वो क्लीन भी है और कहीं ज्यादा अलर्ट है। पीछे की कोई भी गलतियां आप रिपीट नहीं करना चाहते, क्योंकि उन्होंने भी देखा कि उनके लिए स्थितियां बहुत खराब हो गई थी। तो पीएसयू बैंक जाहिर सी बात है कि एक लंबी रेस के घोड़े हैं। और शायद आईसीआईसीआई के किसी एनालिस्ट का मैंने ट्वीट भी किया था कि ये भी पीएसयू बैंक में जैसे लास्ट टाइम हुए थे हमारी करीब 8-10 साल की रैली हुई थी और बहुत ही बड़ा गेन दिया था पीएसयू बैंकों ने, तो कुछ वैसा ही इस बार भी हो सकता है, क्योंकि कोई प्रॉब्लम दिख नहीं रही अभी। और प्राइवेट बैंक जाहिर सी बात है जिस तरह से इनका असली इस्तेमाल, सबसे ज्यादा इस्तेमाल तो फिनटेक का प्राइवेट बैंक करते हैं। थोड़ा पीएसयू बैंकों के ऊपर काफी कुछ दबाव रहता है इस डिसीजन लेने में। डिसीजन मेकिंग प्राइवेट बैंकों के कंपैरिजन में काफी कम है उनकी। तो प्राइवेट बैंकों को जाहिर सी बात है कि टेक्नोलॉजी का ज्यादा बेनिफिट उठाते हैं। जो फिनटेक का बेनिफिट सबसे ज्यादा अगर उठाएगा तो प्राइवेट बैंक उठाएगा। तो मेरे ख्याल से दोनों को अलग अलग तरीके से एडवांटेज मिलना है। और सबसे ज्यादा जो हम लोग का कहना है कि प्राइवेट बैंक और पीएसयू बैंक में अगर हम बैलेंस बन के रहते हैं शांति से, तो 50-60% का जिस तरीके से कह रहे हैं कि हम ऑलमोस्ट कोई 50% पे है, कोई 40% है, तो कोई 60% का इन्वेस्टमेंट कर रहा है बैंकों में। सबसे ज्यादा जो हाईएस्ट गेन दिख रहा है या आउट परफॉर्मेंस दिख रही है वो बैंकों में दिख रही है। और ये शायद कम से कम 2024 तक एकदम कंटिन्यू दिख रही है। जब तक हमारा ये मौजूदा सरकार चल रही है, तब तक कहीं पे कोई प्रॉब्लम वैसे दिख नहीं रही है। तो मेरे ख्याल से हम लोगों ने काफी डेटा पॉइंट कवर किया है। अगर कुछ हम लोग आपस में कोई क्रॉस क्वेश्चनिंग कर लें, कुछ कहीं पे भी मिसिंग पॉइंट हो या किसी के पास कोई डीएम में कोई मैसेज आया हो उसका जवाब दे दे, या आपस में कोई क्रॉस क्वेश्चनिंग कर लें। क्यों सैनिक सर, कुछ करना चाहेंगे?
Yeah. I just want to clarify one thing. An alert listener has pointed out my definition of, the PCR was not exactly right. I had actually taken it up from some website. It is my mistake. I went through the RBI website. It's actually the provisioning done for the gross NPA, what we call doubtful debts. That is, debts which have not been repaid within the 90-day period. So they come as doubtful or gross NPA. Net NPA is where that account has to be written off. So which is in gross NPA or doubtful debts as it's called. The bank is supposed to pursue those borrowers. And if you say that 85% or 88% of the borrowers who are under GNPA are not willing to pay, then it reflects very badly on the abilities of the bank to pursue it. Basically, what the bank management is trying to do is to say, boss, don't hold me responsible. 90% of these doubtful debts will become bad debts. That is not a very prudent way of how a banker should behave. And this can become net NPA when the economic conditions are very bad. So when the economic conditions turn out to be better, so the gross NPAs will no longer become gross NPAs. The entity which has borrowed will begin to repay, and that will directly come into the P&L account. So that is the small clarification. I'm thankful to the person who raised this. I'm sorry I got my definition wrong, but now that I've corrected it. But still, the point remains that you cannot have 80% plus as PCR when the RBI asks you to have only 70%. And in a growing economy, when the business is doing well, nobody would like to have a gross NPA turn into a net NPA. So that is an added win for the profitability of the PSU banks.
थैंक यू सैनिक सर। विनय और प्रेमजा, कोई क्रॉस क्वेश्चनिंग आपस में?
I have a question. सैनिक सर, ये आपके लिए, विपिन जी आप भी आंसर करिए इसका। सर, सैनिक सर, आपने you have seen so many rallies. You've been in the market for over 30 years, and I mean, as I already said, that I am more of an investor and less of a trader. But when the market performs the way it is currently performing, the temptation to trade becomes very, very bright, and I think that is the case for a lot of people that are even entering the market. So of course, at that time things were different. Like we said, that globalization did not come in so much. As Vinay also rightly pointed out, that in the 2000 time things were more IT related. After that, 2008 onwards is when globalization has entered more. What would be your way if you had to guide any of the traders today? What would be your inputs to them in terms of how should they look at their stocks?
Yeah,
This fear psychosis. And
sorry. Yeah.
And one more question along with that only, that since you have seen all sorts of cycles, can you also tell people on the basis of the past how the bull cycle typically works, just so if they have a little idea on the basis of history, they don't panic. How Vipinji keeps saying that the bull market always moves very holy, and then there are these corrections which scare people. So if more people know, hopefully they will not do a panic sell and lose money.
Okay.
मैं
Thanks.
बीच में इंटरप्ट कर लेता हूँ। पारेकर जी, बुल मार्केट एक्चुअली हौले हौले नहीं चलती है। एक जो भी स्पेन में गेम होता है, आपने देखा होगा, तो वो बुल मार्केट जैसे वहां पे बुल बिहेव करता है ना, इसीलिए हम लोग उसको बुल मार्केट बोलते हैं। ये वायलेंट होती है, अप डाउन करती है दोनों साइड की तरफ। तो अभी आप देखिए, जैसे पागल की तरह रेस हुई और बहुत तेजी से 18 महीने में हमें 150% का रिटर्न मिला। बट अगर उसके भी पीछे इन साइड में देखिए तो बीच बीच में बहुत ही वायलेंट फॉल हुए थे। इन दिसंबर 2020 हम 14,700 से नहीं, जनवरी में 14,700 से 13,700, 1000 पॉइंट हमने सिर्फ एक हफ्ते में गिर गए, और वापस वहां से हम 2000 पॉइंट की रैली करते हैं, और फिर वहां से 3 महीने तक फिर ऊपर नीचे जोर से पटक पुटक के 14,000 आ जाते हैं। फिर वहां से हम जितनी 18,600 तक गए थे, वो करीब हमने 8-9 महीने लगाए। काफी डिस्टर्बिंग एटमॉस्फेयर भी था उस टाइम, बट गैप अप गैप डाउन, ऊपर जाना फिर नीचे जाना, तो ये बैलेंस होता है। जनरली इन बियर मार्केट में बहुत गलत तरीके से लोग इसको प्रेजेंट करते हैं। जो पहला होता है एटमॉस्फेयर, वो कोई ना कोई रीजन के कारण अगर होता है, कोई बड़ा रीजन हो गया, तो बहुत तेजी से फॉल होता है। वो बुल मार्केट में भी आता है कि बहुत तेजी से आया, फिर वापस हुआ कि नहीं, रीजन खत्म हो गया, तो फिर वो उससे डबल स्पीड से वो रिकवर करता है। बट जनरली जो बियर मार्केट आता है, जिसको बोलते हैं बियर मार्केट, वो बियर मार्केट को थोड़ा डिफाइन बहुत गलत तरीके से करते हैं, क्योंकि इसको गलत तरीके से डिफाइन करने का नीड है, स्पेशली क्योंकि 60-70% टाइम मार्केट इन बुल फेस में होता है, और 30% टाइम डिक्लाइनिंग मोड में होता है। तो जनरली हमें क्या होता है कि हमें माल खरीदने के लिए लोगों को डरा के रखना है, और वो डर बहुत ही गलत तरीके से रिप्रेजेंट किया जाता है। अगर आप देखिए तो कोई भी चीज डिक्लाइनिंग मोड में है, बियर मार्केट में है, तो कोई आकर देखे कि कोई भी आपके पीएसयू बैंक है या पीएसयू सेक्टर के स्टॉक्स हैं या ऑटो के स्टॉक्स जो 2.5 साल तक डाउन ट्रेंड में थे, जनवरी 2018 से अगर आप मारुति देखिए तो 10,000 से हौले 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 करके 4,000 आए। ऐसा नहीं कि धूम धड़ाक करके गिर गया और वापस फिर बुलिश हुआ, फिर कुछ नहीं, हौले 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 चलता है बहुत आराम से। जो इसको एक्चुअली गलत तरीके से इंटरप्रेट करते हैं। अगर आप जाके देखें कि जितने भी लंबी लंबी डिक्लाइनिंग हुई है, वो बहुत स्लो हुई है। वहां पर बस छोटी छोटी सी होप आती है, और लंबी स्लो 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 डिक्लाइनिंग, क्योंकि हमें बहुत ज्यादा माल ऑफलोड करना होता है। हमें उस टाइम, पूरे टाइम में हमें हमेशा होप्स जनरेट की आती है, टीवी पे बताया जाता है नहीं नहीं सब सही है, वापस हो जाएगा, ये जेम है, ये ब्लू चिप है, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, सब सही हो जाएगा। बट वो पूरी एक साइकिल 2 साल 3 साल 4 साल, कई बार तो फिर अप टू जीरो तक, उसकी बियर साइकिल जीरो तक हो जाती है। तो बुल मार्केट का एक्चुअली हमेशा खुशहाली का मैटर है ना, खुशहाली कभी हौले हौले नहीं चलती, खुशहाली झूमते हुए चलती है। तो जब भी आपको अपवर्ड और हायर हाई जब भी दिखते हैं, ये खुशहाली के साथ चल रहे हैं, तो एकदम क्लियर आइडेंटिफिकेशन है कि आप बुल मार्केट में हैं। और इसके साथ अगर आपने फंडामेंटल डेटा का विजन भी रख लिया, तो आपको सारी चीजें मैच हो जाती हैं। जनरली बियर मार्केट को लेके बहुत ही गलत तरीके से इंटरप्रेट किया जाता है। 200-400 पॉइंट गिर गई तो लगता है बस बियर मार्केट है। ये जनरल लाइफ का बिहेवियर है कि जरा सा भूकंप आया तो सब बिल्डिंग के बाहर निकल गए कि बस अब हमारी बिल्डिंग गिराने के लिए ये धरती हिल रही है, जबकि कुछ होता नहीं है ऐसा। बहुत ही रेयर इवेंट्स होते हैं जहाँ पर डैमेजेस होते हैं, और वो डैमेजेस भी वहीं होते हैं जहाँ पे बुनियाद कमजोर होती है। जहाँ बुनियाद बड़ी मजबूत है, बड़ी बड़ी बिल्डिंगें हैं जो अर्थक्वेक के हिसाब से, भूकंप के हिसाब से बनी है, तो वो सब संभल जाती, कुछ नहीं होता। हजार हजार मतलब फीट की बिल्डिंगों को कुछ भी नहीं होता। तो ये सब कहने की बातें हैं, बियर मार्केट और बुल मार्केट को लेकर बहुत ही कंफ्यूज करते हैं, या यूं कहिए कि जो बात इनको दिखानी होती है ना, उस तरीके से अपनी टोन चेंज कर देते हैं। मुझे ये भी याद है 2008 में जब सबसे बड़ा क्रैश, पिछला जो भी था, वो पिछला सबसे बड़ा क्रैश वही था 2008 का। और एवरी मंथ हम ऊपर नीचे जाके हम एक नया लो बनाते थे। बट उस 8-12 महीने मैंने दिन रात टीवी देखी है, पढ़ा है, एवरी टाइम लोग बुलिश ही करने की कोशिश करते थे। कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, वो अमेरिका में प्रॉब्लम है, सब प्राइम क्लासेस है, इंडिया का बहुत बढ़िया फंडामेंटल है, ये है वो है। बट कोई भी आदमी ये नहीं कहता था कि हाँ हम बहुत एक्सपेंसिव थे और डर का माहौल है, इसका क्या हो जाएगा। बात है, मार्केट चलती है, गिरती है अनसर्टेनिटी पे। जो भी चल रहा है, जो भी आंधी तूफान आ रहा है, इसका क्या इम्पैक्ट आएगा तो किसी को कुछ पता नहीं है। तो बस डर का माहौल बना हुआ है और उससे वो गिर रहा है। लेकिन वो जो 2008 में जो हुआ था अमेरिका में, वो बहुत बड़ी बात थी, वो सिस्टमेटिक बहुत बड़ा फॉल्ट था। कोई भी बैंक एक दूसरे बैंक पे भरोसा नहीं करता था। इसका तो बहुत अच्छा सा एक्सप्लेनेशन विनय ने किया है, क्योंकि उनकी सबसे पहली एंट्री इसी टाइम पे हुई है, और जो उनकी स्टडी है वो बहुत ही डीप लेवल की है। तो वो जिस तरह का वो फॉल्ट हुआ था, वैसा कभी आपको, मुझे नहीं लगता कि इतनी आसानी से दोबारा दिखेगा, क्योंकि दुनिया सीखती है गलतियां करके, और वो बहुत बड़ा लूप होल था। तो आगे हम तैयार भी हैं उस तरीके से, और उस तरह का एटमॉस्फेयर नहीं आएगा। जब भी आएगी बियर साइकिल, तो एक बहुत बड़े बुल साइकिल को कंप्लीट करने के बाद आएगी। अभी हम चले ही कहाँ हैं? अगर आप देखिए तो डॉलर के मैटर में, डॉलर के अगर करेंसी डिप्रेशन देखें तो अभी तक तो हम 12-15 साल के हाई पे भी नहीं है। तो 12-15 साल से हम क्या कर रहे थे? जाहिर सी बात है मिड लाइफ क्राइसिस में थे। उसको हम लोगों ने एक्सप्लेन भी किया हुआ है चार्ट पे, और फंडामेंटली भी हर चीज जस्टिफाई होती है। अब हम इतने टाइम से अगर हम मेच्योर हुए हैं तो जाहिर सी बात है कुछ बड़ा करके जाएंगे, कुछ छोटा नहीं होना है। बाकी सैनिक सर से जो सवाल था वो सैनिक सर कवर करिए।
Thanks. For that, I will tell you one incident and one story. See, today when we talk of P ratios, people say interest rates are increasing. So these P ratios make no sense. So bull market will not be there if interest rates are increasing. What is the interest rate today? Fed rate is about 2.25 to 2.5, right? Um, we all say that when Vipin Bhai entered the market was very bullish, long-term bullish, 3, 4, 5 years and all that. The most bullish, of course, was 2006, 2007. Guess what the Fed rates were at that point of time? 5.25%. 5.25. And this was for 14 months between June of 2006 to September of 2007. Even in 2005, we had interest rates of 4.5. So during the great bull run, which happened in 2004, 5, 6, 7, we had very high interest rates. So we are nowhere near that kind of interest rates. People think the market, the whole economy will collapse if you have 4%. People are expecting a maximum of 4% increase interest rate from Fed. But 4% has been seen, 5.25% has been seen in 2006-7. And we had one of the greatest bull markets. So you have to keep everything in perspective. The second point I want to say about these new people who come is, see, when in the first 8-9 years of our life, in my trading life, in 99, for instance, in 98, 99 was a bad time. The economy was doing badly, the political scenario was bad, Vajpayee lost by a single vote, no confidence motion was there, Kargil war was there, all kinds of things. So those days, you see, we used to buy and sell for 2 rupees. We used to say, okay, let us buy today. Tomorrow morning, we'll sell it. Because that time it was a 5-day settlement. So there was no futures and options at that time. So you see, we thrived on this 2 rupee business. Get into some stock and look for 2 rupees. So all of us, we were so scared of the economy, the political war and all that. One gentleman came to me. I remember this because I need to tell this story again and again. Is that he told me, sir, this is not a 2 rupee market. This is a 200 rupee market. You buy and hold. That is, you buy on Wednesday, sell on Tuesday because the settlement ends. Again, you buy back on Wednesday. Again, you run that as much as possible. Any stock you pick, especially in the tech business. We could not believe because we said we are so scared. So many things are around us which are very, very bad. Only if you live during that time, you'll know that. So we said, boss, this guy is talking nonsense. He said, no, sir, Y2k is there. If tech companies will make huge amount of money. So just invest in tech stocks, and keep on rotating it. The same thing, because there's no futures and we were not a part of Badla in Madras. So National Stock Exchange, Wednesday to Tuesday, keep on repeating it in particular stock. And K10 stocks were there, K10 Parex 10 stocks were there. Ztele or Satya or, Himachal Future Stick. But we did not believe. And you see that he was also wrong because it never went 2 rupees. It went 2,000 rupees. In 2,000 rupees, it went in 6-7 months. And we missed that thing because we disbelieved a voice of sanity. We thought, oh, what is Y2k problem? Once Y2k ends, for people who don't know what Y2k is, all computers in the world were the 4 digits at 1999. After 99, people said all computers will stop working from January 1st, 2000. So there were a lot of orders, projects for these tech companies. So we thought after January 2000, there will be no new projects. So why should we buy tech companies? We did not buy. The same thing I'm feeling in PSU banks today. People say, boss, what PSU bank? They never make profit. For 10 years, they're doing nothing. And you see, Canara Bank was 840 in 2010. Now it is only struggling at 250 rupees, 240 rupees. How can you imagine it will go to 840 rupees? Or Union Bank, will it go to 550 rupees? It is only 50 rupees. It's not Union Bank. Sorry, what is that? Bank of India, it is 500 plus. Now it is 50 rupees. It's struggling. Why should we invest there? Let's go and invest in tech. Let's go invest everything else excepting PSU banks. So I'm getting the same feeling. I tell people, this is not a 5 rupee stock. Don't look for 5 rupee profit. This is a 50 rupees, 100 rupee tone. I don't know where it's going. SBI is made lifetime profits again and again. How can you expect the damn thing to be at 500 rupees? It just doesn't make any sense to me, actually. So I cannot be more emphatic for the newcomers. Lessen your trading, look at stocks, maybe you take in futures, but take it long dated futures, long dated options. Do some strategy like that. Don't look for this, trying to be hero and zero on Thursday, trying to do today I'll buy, tomorrow I'll sell for 2 rupees, 5 rupees. You'll lose the plot. You'll lose the plot. Please don't do this. Mark my words, this run, unless something happens which I don't know right now, some third world war or something like that. And the current conditions, current knowledge which we have about interest rates hiking, inflation, deflation, all that, this is just the beginning. This is April 1999 for tech stocks is equivalent to for much part of the market now, especially the mid caps, some select small caps. For me, PSU is what I'm putting my money on because the downside is limited and I'm able to see some really big numbers, which I don't want to talk here because that will then, confuse people and make people wonder about that. I am comfortable in holding that. I remember 1999. I remember the gentleman, how we mocked him, and then he turned out to be really correct. And actually, he was also very conservative when he said it is 200 rupees. All of them, some from 10 rupees, they went to 5,000 rupees, 4,000 rupees. It was a mania. I don't know whether it will be a mania, but certainly you are in a good wicket now to look at markets, to look at a little bit long term, means even when you're trading rather than looking for day to day. Yeah, thanks. I hope I answered very Himja.
Yes, sir. Vipinji, one more question.
जी प्लीज.
So I have at least 6 or 7 people have sent me the same question. आपने ये जो chart दिया है of the US and Russian currency, talking about the future prospects of USD INR, तो उनके context में people want an idea of IT sector.
ये थोड़ा सा फर्क है, बट हमें थोड़ा सा और चीजें देखना पड़ेगा. अभी जिस तरीके से अगर हम पहले देखें कि हमारी टोटल आईटी की रेवेन्यू क्या सब डॉलर में आती है, नहीं, हमारी यूरो में भी आती है, अदर करेंसी में भी आती है. और जिस तरीके से अभी ये जो नया डेवलपमेंट हुआ है, और विनय शायद मेरी हेल्प कर सकेंगे, अभी फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्री का एक नया कुछ आया था इंपोर्ट और एक्सपोर्ट के लिए आईएनआर में बिल काटने का. तो विनय आप कुछ हेल्प करोगे इसमें?
जी सर, सेटलमेंट ऑफ इंपोर्ट्स एक्सपोर्ट्स, दे आर मेकिंग इट इजी टू गेट डन इन रशियन रबल, और रबल और रुपए का भी पेयर ट्रेडिंग शुरू करने की बात हो रही है. तो उससे जो इंडिया का इंपोर्ट बढ़ रहा है वहाँ से ऑयल का, गोल्ड वगैरह का और डिफेंस का, उसके ऊपर से डॉलर का ऊपर प्रेशर कम हो जाएगा इंडिया में.
जी, तो मेरा एक रिप्रेजेंट करने का ये तरीका था कि अगर फंडामेंटल्स चेंज होते हैं तो देखो उसमें तो यूएसडी का भी आईएनआर का भी था कि 2000 के बाद जब पैसा बुरी तरह से पागलों की तरफ पैसा आया तो ऑलमोस्ट 20% अप्रिशिएट किया था आईएनआर. उसके बाद भी बीच में हुआ है, पर उतना बड़ा वाइड रेंज में नहीं हुआ था क्योंकि हम लोग तो उसके बाद चले गए मिड लाइफ क्राइसिस में. फिर उसके बाद अगर आप देखिए तो जैसे अभी रशिया का था, कि रशिया का मैंने इसलिए डाला कि इतना उथल पुथल रहता है और वो सब एक लार्जेस्ट प्रोड्यूसर है कमोडिटीज का और रॉ मटेरियल का. तो वहां पर भी क्या है 30% 35% हर 24 महीने में 2-3 बार ऐसा हो चुका है कि अप्रिशिएट किया है. तो अगर आज हम जिस तरह से फंडामेंटल इंडिया का चेंज हो रहा है बैंकिंग के मैटर में, बॉन्ड के मैटर में, हम इंपोर्ट एक्सपोर्ट में जिस तरीके से बैलेंसिंग कर रहे हैं, तो ये जो 80 का जो भी था पैनिक, ये मेरे ख्याल से ये बहुत अच्छा एंट्री लेवल होता है एफआई के लिए. और यहाँ पर अगर एफआई एंट्री करता है तो 20% का तो उसको वैसे ही बेनिफिट मिलता है. और जब जिस तरीके से फंडामेंटल देख रहा है तो हम लोगों ने जैसा भी हिस्टोरिक मूवमेंट बाकी भी करेंसीज में होता है या रशिया रूबल में हुआ है या इंडिया में भी बहुत पहले ढंग से हुआ है, तो हम एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे हैं कि हम अभी कुछ साल पहले 2018 के बिगनिंग में 64 के लेवल पे थे, तो हम उस लेवल पे बहुत आसानी से आ जाते हैं. और अगर ये सब होता है तो हमारी इकोनॉमी जितना करेंसी थोड़ा बैलेंस हो जाती है, हमारी स्ट्रांग होती है, क्योंकि हम एक्सपोर्ट बेस नहीं है अभी हमारी इकोनॉमी, हम इंपोर्ट बेस है, तो हमारी करेंसी थोड़ी मजबूत रहती है, तो इससे हमको फायदा मिलता है बहुत ज्यादा। तो यहाँ से भी जो 20% का जो डिफरेंस जनरेट होगा, ये इंडिया की इकोनॉमी में और आग लगाएगा। और ये पूरी तरह से क्लियर है। बहुत से लोगों को क्या है दिमाग में, अरे कभी हमने आज तक देखा नहीं। अरे भाई तुमने नहीं देखा, तुम अभी 2 दिन हुआ है तुमको मार्केट में आए, और सिर्फ तुम गॉसिप करते हो, पेस्ट्री की तरह स्टॉक मार्केट की चीजों को पढ़ते हो और आपस में गॉसिप करते हो। तुम जाकर पहले स्टडी करो, देखो कि क्या क्या हुआ है। .com के बस्ट के बाद जब मार्केट क्रैश हुआ था, उसके बाद यूएसडी आईएनआर ने कितना भयानक अप्रिसिएशन किया था। तो ये जो चीजें हैं बैलेंस हो रही हैं, ये तो यहाँ पे होंगी। तो जब काम बढ़ेगा तो जाहिर सी बात है कि आईटी को ग्लोबली भी काम मिलना है, डोमेस्टिक भी काम मिलना है, और जो करेंसी का डिपेंडेंसी है डॉलर पे वो भी बैलेंस हो रहा है। तो मुझे नहीं लगता कि कोई ऐसी प्रॉब्लम आएगी। और एक चीज और बोलना चाहूंगा कि जिस समय 64 के से 75 गया था, उस समय आईटी ने कोई खास परफॉर्मेंस नहीं दी थी, जबकि ये बहुत बड़ा बेनिफिट था क्योंकि काम नहीं ज्यादा था, ग्रोथ नहीं ऐसी थी। तो करेंसी को लेके इतना ज्यादा कोरिलेट ना करें। हेलो।
Yes.
जी।
Sainik sir, one more question. This is in the chat of the space. You've mentioned about being very very optimistic on manufacturing. I think we had even discussed that in one of our previous spaces, and you had mentioned that one day you will talk extensively on PLI. But I don't know. Maybe could you talk a little bit about why you are so positive on manufacturing today? In short, since we are talking about overall the economic expansion.
Yeah, very quickly, the thing is, see, we were going to be a service economy, which was the last 15, 20 years. That was the focus. Now, with the current government, the government has changed to their focus being on manufacturing economy. Now, that is an anathema for a lot of people who believe that we are not good at manufacturing. We were great at manufacturing. India was the manufacturing hub for the world at one point of time, during the British times, and subsequently also. Service industry has come only in the last 25 years, for instance. So we have strengths in manufacturing. And today, you see, with China getting into trouble, that China plus one, which everyone is talking about, who is that plus one? That plus one, for China manufacturers, for them, plus one could be Vietnam, because it is, in many ways, it's like a mini China. But for a global manufacturing manufacturer who set up a base in China, who wants to diversify or want to move out partially, India presents one of the finest opportunities, is what those manufacturers have said. Apple, for instance, has put its money where its mouth is. Today, I was looking at some news item. Tata has put some 80 billion between Tata, Reliance, and this Adani. I think some huge money is there. I don't have that data here with me, but it's Tata is putting 80 billion, some huge amount, humongous amount in manufacturing. They're not talking of service. So the government is very clear. The industrialists have understood it,
it's
and they are putting
billion,
so 200 billion, right? You are seeing that. Yeah. So 6% of GDP. So when for the first time in many years, maybe a couple of decades, the industry is now saying we will set up manufacturing base here. Our local guys are saying we will set up manufacturing base. The government is saying, please manufacture, we will have the PLI scheme. Of course, PLI scheme runs up to 2026. So the benefits will come in 24, 25, 26. But the moment, it starts in 22, 23 onwards, it starts, you will see that benefits in the bottom line for the companies, more and more companies will set up, because it's an incentive finally at the end of the day. And you are seeing other guys coming here. And you have seen in the past, nothing has worked, so you are depressed. So the Hanuman will get up now. As Nirmala Sitharaman said, you people are like Hanuman and you don't know your strength is. Hanuman will get up only when he sees all others or his actions or his neighbor's actions are yielding great results. So the first The big guys will enter, the smart guys, the Ambani, Tatas, and Tatas is number bigger than Ambani's incidentally for manufacturing. So it is logical, and markets will, look at it. We are saying they discount the future. So obviously the market say Vipin Bhai is talking of till 24 it will run. So if it wants to run till 24, you better get in now, no? And enjoy the benefits of running to 24 rather than saying at 2023 end I will see whether it will run to 2024. By the time won't it be too late? It's like that IT boom. It started in 98. This gentleman came and told me 99 April, May, June, and it peaked out in March of 2000. So why wait till 2024? It is happening already. See, when we are seeing it on the ground, and yesterday, I think this was the Prime Minister unveiled a policy. Now, you look at those policies which they're all geared towards infrastructure, manufacturing, logistics. So you can sense it. It's there in front of you. It is not some, we are not drawing some charts here and lines here and saying this will happen, that will happen. This is already happening. If you don't want to listen to it, then I don't know what is. Just one more example I would like to say. I'm talking too much now, but see, in 2004, when I went to Bangalore, I come from Bangalore, so I went and I had seen Bangalore. I used to feel Bangalore is a sleepy town. 90s, I saw. Slowly, I could see some movement going. In 2004, I saw the first mall coming up, some Forum Mall in Bangalore. So we had never seen a mall in my life. I said, boss, what is this? So then I realized something has changed. And then you got the malls in other places. Then you had the highways coming up and all that. So that is already 2006-07. By the time it's too late. In 2003, 2002, 2003 is when you should enter. The roads were being built. The national highways were being built in 2002, 2003. We knew what is going to happen, what is golden quadrilateral. We knew everything. But in 2004, you see the mall. At 2005, you say, oh, everybody is having flyovers. Then I will invest in infrastructure. By the time it comes 2006-07, you're late. So I am thinking we are in 2003, 2004 as far as the infrastructure, infrastructure of that time, manufacturing of now.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. तो हमारे विनय जी लॉग ऑफ हो चुके हैं. थोड़ी तबीयत ठीक नहीं थी, सर दर्द का प्रॉब्लम था उनको. वैसे भी सुबह से भी थी प्रॉब्लम, बट उन्होंने मैनेज किया क्योंकि कमिटेड थे हम लोग इस प्रोग्राम के लिए. तो हालांकि हमने पॉइंट्स सारे कवर कर लिए हैं और क्वेश्चन आंसर के लिए हम माफ़ी चाहते हैं कि अब हमारे को होस्ट की तबीयत ठीक नहीं है और काफ़ी टाइम भी हो चुका है, तो हम इसको बाद में कभी कवर कर लेंगे. और आप जो भी हमारे स्पेस के लिंक हैं उसमें नीचे आप कंटिन्यू कर सकते हैं अपने क्वेश्चन, और इंडिविजुअली ये जो भी स्पीकर्स हैं ये लोग अपने अपने हिसाब से रिप्लाई करेंगे. आप अपना उनका नाम डाल के डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन पूछ सकते हैं कि सैनिक सर है कि आपको इनसे पूछना है या इंडिया से पूछना है या विनय जी से पूछना है, तो आप क्वेश्चन कर सकते हैं. काफ़ी लोगों के क्वेश्चन हैं कि IT स्टॉक के बारे में क्या था, तो अभी हमने कवर किया. पारिकी से था, बैंकिंग पूरा कवर कर लिया है, तो कोई घबराने की चीज़ नहीं है. थोड़ा सा कहते हैं ना कि मार्केट में अगर आप हैं तो आपके पास पहले से कहीं ज़्यादा आज के डेट में कंटेंट की अवेलेबिलिटी है. तो जो झूठ बोलता था उसके पास आज हथियार कहीं ज़्यादा स्ट्रांग है और कहीं वो ज़्यादा पैशनेटेड है, क्योंकि झूठ बोलने वाला जो होता है वो ज़्यादा पैशनेटेड होता है. सच बोलने वाले को पता होता है कि उसको जिम्मेदारी लेनी है लोगों को बोल के. लोग कल को बोलेंगे कि आप तो ये बोले थे मार्केट बुली से, लेकिन जिसको झूठ बोलना है वो सिर्फ आपके कान में आके मच्छर की तरह आके जबरदस्ती आके बोल के जाएगा, सुनो कल बेच देना, मार्केट गिरेगा, बहुत गिरेगा, सब बेकार है. हो सकता है कि वो उसका पता नहीं क्या इंटेंशन है, क्यों बोलते हैं लोग. आपको खास तौर से ये ध्यान देना चाहिए कि जिसको भी आप सुन रहे हो, हमारी भी आपने जो भी चीज़ सुनी है इसको आप वेरीफाई करो. ऐसे नहीं होता है कि आपने जो भी सुना हमारा सुना मान लिया. किसी का भी कुछ भी सुनो मानो नहीं, आप उसको वेरीफाई करो, चीज़ों को समझो कि क्यों चलना चाहिए, क्या करना चाहिए. और एक खतरा तो रहता ही है दुनिया में. अगर अचानक से कोई अनहोनी नई शुरू हो जाए, कोई प्रॉब्लम आ जाए, तो जाहिर से चीज़ें सब पलट जाएगी, चेंज होंगी. लेकिन अगर आप ये सोचे कि आज के माहौल पे अगर आपको कोई बेरिश कर रहा है, तो कोई बेरिश डेटा है नहीं हम लोग के पास. जो भी है सब कुछ बहुत ही अच्छा है बुली से. फ्यूचर में अगर कोई आता है तो जाहिर सी बात है कि वो कंसर्न हो सकता है. तो मेरे ख्याल से अच्छा टाइम स्पेंड किया हम लोगों ने 2 घंटे का. और ये इसकी रिकॉर्डिंग भी अवेलेबल रहेगी, आप इसको रिट्वीट कर सकते हैं और जिसका भी इनकम्प्लीट है, पूरी तरह से आगे से सुनना चाहता तो वो भी कर ले। और कोशिश करिएगा कि अपना फीडबैक दे दीजिएगा, रिट्वीट करके इसको आगे भी बढ़ा दीजिएगा, लाइक करके। और नेक्स्ट टाइम के लिए हम इससे भी बेहतर इसी को कंटिन्यू करता हुआ कोई अपना टॉपिक लेके आएंगे, जो आई थिंक हमें 10-15 दिन लगता है मार्केट के साथ से डेटा कलेक्ट करने में, फिर उसके हिसाब से प्रिपरेशन करने में। तो थैंक यू। और सैनिक सर, आप लास्ट में कंक्लूड करना चाहेंगे कुछ?
Right. Actually, I want to conclude on a very personal note about four of us. See, this, okay, we had a good discussion. Thanks to everyone who came here. Unfortunately, we are not taking questions directly, but we have done it indirectly as much as possible. And as Vipin Bhai said, please write to us. We will reply, whether it's in DM. My DM is always open, so always reply. So the personal thing which I want to say, and which is I think needs to be addressed, is take Vipin Bhai's case. Now people keep on asking him questions about how have you come with this number? You are giving some numbers which are unimaginable and all that. Recently, I met somebody who said, "Sir, this Vipin Bhai wo pagal hai kya?" So I said, "Why?" So he's saying, "Sir, he gave some target." Which I went and asked my software supplier, what software can I use to get those kind of targets which Vipin guys get. So that software supplier said, "Boss, there is no such formula I can tell you, or no algorithm, or there is no app or something like that." So this guy was concerned, from where is this guy giving this? So I said, see, think that you are going to a magic show. Now the magician will come, and the PC Sarkar, for instance, he will come and do so many magic tricks, and you'll get entertained, and you will get some benefit. I mean, you will feel nice. So same thing, Vipin Bhai is sitting and doing some hard work for us. The magician also is doing hard work for us. So we don't go and ask the magician, "Boss, how did you bring out the rabbit from the hat? Or how did you cut the woman in half and again she became the same?" and all that. So enjoy the magic, and you decide whether you want to really enjoy it or not. Same thing in the market. When Vipin Bhai put some numbers and you would have obviously not tried to gain some popularity here by putting some numbers, because he's putting his reputation on the line, and reputation is the biggest asset a person has got. Right. So why trouble somebody and ask continuously, "Sir, please tell us how you are able to come up with these numbers?" That is one thing I feel you should respect his way of doing things, and just enjoy it. See, I've gone on record that I keep on telling I have had 30 years of experience. But in my 30 years of experience, I am not trying to maskafy Vipin Bhai. I not even met him. Okay, I met only Himja. I not even met Vinay, for that matter. So in my 30 years of experience, if I were to take top 10 analysts who are practical analysts, there are a lot of people whom I met or whom I have encountered, maybe by in the media or something. But this guy will be there in the top 10. There is no doubt in my mind about it. Whether he's my friend, not my friend, tomorrow we are friends or not, that is not material. In pure, practical sense, this guy is there top of the tops. Okay, so that is one thing. When I say this with all sincerity, I assume that others also should just respect his way of doing things. Then come to Vinay. Vinay is like this mad scientist. They'll show in movies. He'll put some chemical this side, some chemical this side, boom, something will come, and then something magic will come out of that chemical. So people are asking, what is the ratio charts? Even I don't understand most of what Vinay does, but the only thing I know is he's doing it with some sincerity. And at the end of the day, when he's putting two liquids, so long as he's bringing out ethyl alcohol, it is okay. So if he brings methyl alcohol, then it's a problem, right? And I don't drink, but ethyl alcohol is alcohol, normal alcohol, which we all have on weekends. So you again have to respect, Vinay for his magic, what he's doing. I mean, imagine he's doing something which is slightly different from what Vipin is doing. And obviously, and I'm very impressed with Vinay because, you see, he's just a 30-year-old guy, actually. My experience 30 years, I don't have that kind of, brightness as this guy has got. Then come to Himja. For instance. Himja is a scholarly person, so her way of looking at things are. So last week, for instance, I think some guy from abroad made some very disparaging comments. I just don't like people to make such comments, especially because she's a woman and she can't respond. I don't think, forgivable. In fact, I reported to Twitter. I don't think that guy should be on Twitter at all. So you have to appreciate the good things of each of these people and see what we can do to learn from them. See, I learn a lot from all these three people. As I said, I have not met Vinay as well as Vipin. I hope to meet them soon. But more than meeting is meeting of minds, and that is what has happened, and that's how we have come here to share something from whatever little I know. At least I don't know too many things. I just have some experience. As I say, a donkey also has got experience. So kindly keep that in perspective, saying, and don't try to, and also understand that we are not here to sell some tip surveys or something like that, where and we're not anyway giving any tips. We're giving you broad. Sometimes one should pay for that also, in my opinion. But that let's leave that aside. So just take that in the right spirit, and just enjoy this session. We will not disparage somebody, but we will give you a perspective which we have tried our best to do, and we will do it in the future, as the captain of our team says. And we hope to meet all of you soon. Thank you for listening to us, and have a happy Sunday. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Himja?
Yes, thank you. That was very touching, sir. And thank you everybody for your time.